Hey, good morning, everyone. It is 9:05. We're a little late. We had some technical difficulties on our end. Um, so welcome to our September 29th, 2025 Board of County Commissioners meeting. It is our 9 a.m. budget workshop. Let the record reflect that all five commissioners are present. And we have a busy, long day, so we will get started. So we'll start with Jeff. I'll let you lead off and then we'll go from there.
Think we'll just jump right in. I think I told everybody there is a second shorter presentation for Council for Defense. We appreciate that. And with that, we'll jump in with pretrial.
All right, thank you for having me. I have a pretty short presentation today, only about 3 slides, so that shouldn't take too long, but do you want a slideshow? Yeah.
Does the title count?
I hope not. Yeah. You can skip ahead a bit. I included some of the numbers there in case you didn't have them, but we can come back to that if needed. One more. So just as a department overview of pretrial services, out of the general fund, we have 11.5 full-time employees. We do work 7 days a week, 363 days a year. I say that because the only days we skip are Thanksgiving and Christmas, but every other holiday and weekend we are covering. We're writing first appearance evaluations for the judges and court commissioners, conducting indigency screenings 7 days a week. Very full operation with a pretty small staff size. I'll get to that later, but our budget from last year that we're trying to meet again this year is $1,186,000. Get into that as well. Just briefly, the statutory services that we do provide, we are a designee Superior and District Courts. We're tasked with conducting their public defender indigency screenings, which we do for both District and Superior Court. And we prepare first appearance evaluations for both Superior and District Court. We are digging into the information that speaks directly to the Court Rule 3.2 there, the mitigating factors for decisions on release. If a defendant is a risk to commit a violent crime, if they are a flight risk not to return to court, or if they might perhaps interfere with the administration of justice. We're also looking into ties to the community, their ability to post bond, their employment, mental health needs, substance abuse treatment needs, all of this background information that is influential and important to the court to make a decision on release. That's what the court has tasked us to find out from inmates so that we can prepare in that first appearance evaluation report. And I think one of the important things to note is that while our officers are working on weekends, these weekend arrests, there's no hearings on the weekend. Judges reviewing these remotely. There's no attorneys weighing in on release. And really the information we're providing to the court is really influential and important for the court to make a decision on weekends as far as release from custody. So that's where I think we play a vital role on weekends. Some of our non-statutory services, at least out of the general fund, would include our felony monitored release program. Superior Court judges and commissioners release inmates to report to us on a scheduled check-in schedule and abide by all release conditions. We perform criminal history checks, remind them of their court dates, make sure they've been screened for a public defender, otherwise just assist them in the pretrial phase. That's in Superior Court. We also operate in conjunction with the prosecutor's office, the felony diversion program. Usually first-time felons who are facing a felony charge have an opportunity to avoid going through traditional prosecution, complete community service hours, pay back victim restitution, and complete other classes like anger management or theft awareness, things like that, as directed by the court. We run that program right now. There's usually about 110, 115 individuals involved in that program at time. Monitored release program, we're monitoring about 160 folks at any given time. So that's out of the general fund. So that's the non-statutory services that we provide. Unless there's any questions, that's the next slide. So some of the needs and challenges for our department, we've taken on the MacArthur Capstone Grant. As far as our general fund employees are concerned, they're tasked with all the training and the development of these new employees. As part of this MacArthur grant, we've reintroduced the supported release program in district court. So that's been a lot of our resources and energy has been spent on that. We're working on trying to improve appearance rates in district court, avoiding warrants. And we also, as you guys have probably seen, the help desk out here on the first floor of the courthouse that was introduced in mid-August. So we're taking on all these three things at once, and that's been fun and challenging at the same time. I think the biggest challenge, as I alluded to earlier, is just being able to staff an operation of 7 days a week, 363 days a year with a fairly small workforce. That's one of our challenges. And then looking more into the future, I think our biggest need that we have is we really need to upgrade our software for pretrial services. We're using an in-house program that was made by our IT department. It's a great program. We love it, but it is old. It was created in like 2005. It is not great on recording data. And in this age, everybody wants data and stats pretty quickly. It's quite labor intensive to pull out numbers from our existing database. To say the least, we would like to align with other pretrial services agencies across the state, Pierce County, Thurston County, Yakima County, regular contact with them. We're working on trying to align our programming with them. And then just to have less reliance on our county IT for program support. Kevin Norris has fully supported us looking out there for an off-the-shelf program to better serve our department, working with him about looking for that. So, and then as far as reductions to the 2026 budget, this will go into the next slide as well, but the proposed reduction that we would have to do to meet our target for 26 is to reduce one full-time pretrial officer down to 80%. This would bring $16,960 in budget savings. Obviously, we would like to maintain that position at 100%. So the additional funding request would be just to maintain that position and to not have to cut that 16,000. It would ensure our ability to maintain our existing service levels, especially on weekends and holidays. Continue to provide criminal history reports, assist judges in those release decisions pursuant to Court Rule 3.2. Continue to provide timely indigency screenings for inmates, especially considering the new arraignment rule that just came into place. We're on a much stricter timeline, just about 3 days now. So we really have to be on the ball with screening defendants in a timely manner. We used to have 14 days, so we had more time to work with certain defendants, but the timeline has been sped up. And we just want to avoid having to use our overtime budget to maintain our current service levels. So one of the things in this budget cut that we're looking at is how do we maintain and keep our service levels on weekends? Because that would be the first position that would be affected is most specifically like our Sunday staff. We would have to cut back on weekend staffing, and that could affect the number of reports we're able to write, give to the judges. It might delay the number of indigency screenings that we're able to perform. That may have to wait an additional 24 hours. Obviously not ideal, but we're stretching out the timeline when we're able to help these folks, get them screened for court. And just in general, the amount of production we're able to provide the judges and commissioners on weekends could slip if we lose this position down to 80%. So those are my introductory remarks. I think those are all my slides too. So if you have any questions about our department or our budget requests.
The FTEs. I think there's a slide in the packet of the budget that shows that you're at 13.5, but that can't be.
That's from the caps. That may have been.
Oh,
included
that's
capstone.
Arthur.
Yeah, so I didn't want to include that.
Oh.
I just want to speak to the general fund. Arthur grant's still going on through 2026.
And that's funding 2 positions.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 pretrial officers out of the current.
Just a couple of comments. Commissioners can see by Aaron's budget of his $1,186,000. All but 6,000 is personnel. That's where his budget goes to support and all personnel. So there's not really a lot of room without doing something with personnel. Yeah. And then Aaron I don't know if you're far enough along yet. Work with IT on identifying a potential replacement system? Do you have something identified and is it, had it been included in your capital request for this year for the commission to evaluate? We're not quite that far along.
Not quite that far. We've been waiting, Yakima County and Pierce County are kind of taking the lead with that, so we're waiting to see how far they get with this certain company that they're exploring with and seeing if we can align with them. So it's very early in the process.
And then,
I would say maybe we're still putting on the capital app. Cause then you know how much it would cost.
Sure.
With those. That's, if it's something that you're gonna need.
even if it's not specifically an absolute no number, but kind of a range, talking about ranges. And there were some conversations the board had with some of the courts last week, I believe, around I think your team, when they do their indigent defense review to see if they're qualified for it, sometimes you'll make a recommendation that maybe they're fully qualified for 100%, or maybe they're partially qualified, and there should be some sort of obligation to pay for it. And it came up last week that the court or the courts are saying they're not allowed to have a court order for recovery, which is that's cost, but perhaps there's another avenue where they're signing promissory notes and we're able to have some sort of enforceable collection on that. Can you speak to a little bit of that, what the opportunities or challenges are with it?
Yeah, I think there's been some initial talks. Judge Pleas has led some discussion on this. I paraphrase it correctly, but because the court's now waiving a lot of the fines and fees, and that would include in the old days, the judges could assess in the judgment and sentence attorney's fees, which usually comes from our office. We would indicate a defendant could be represented with a contribution of X amount of dollars. And at the sentencing phase, the judge could impose that. Well, based on a number of changes in the court system and court rules, they're waiving almost everything at this point, if they're found indigent. So there's been some discussion about moving the process on through Workday. Pretrial services would create some sort of invoice, ticket, and prosecutors work through the system. Prosecutor's office wouldn't, and Matt, I don't know if you know any of this, but it would be enforced more, I believe, kind of on the civil side of things. So the court wouldn't really be involved with it at all. It would be a kind of separate matter from the court. There hasn't been any recent discussion on that, but it would sidestep the court waiving all these fees. So it can actually be enforced through the Workday process, through the auditor's office, treasurer. There would be a lot of departments in the county involved with it, but it would start with our office scrutiny, making the assessment of how much a defendant could contribute towards their legal defense, and then it would have to go through a number of other departments. And then from my understanding, it would be more enforced or through like a collection sort of system.
And these are fairly sizable commissioners between Superior Court and District Court. The fees that were recommended to be assessed by pretrial since 2018 amounts to about over $6 million that's been waived, and annually about $1 million from each court. So those are fees that we could be collecting to offset our public defense costs that we're not collecting right now because they're being waived.
Can we make that part of their budget? Courts?
I don't know that I think they would state that court law, case law suggests that they can't order it, but we need to look at another process for recovering that, and I don't know how labor intensive it would be, but these are sizable dollars that could be coming back in to offset.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. Do you know, are these fees that are being waived, you referenced, changes in the courts and are those decisions that our Superior Court is making to waive or have they been told by the Supreme Court you cannot assess these? To what level can these be waived, or to what level must they be waived.
Yeah, that's a
I
great
guess.
question. I was gonna say maybe a little bit of both, but yeah, the direction they're getting from the, I believe, from the Supreme Court, is affecting what they can impose or and what they need to waive. I think, and I've only seen it a little bit in Superior Court firsthand, but, they get to the point of sentencing and they see on our evaluation from their initial, appointment of counsel that they were indigent. Even if they were indigent with, the expectation that they could contribute towards their, legal representation. Courts finding them indigent just altogether and maybe all costs at sentencing. That's been my experience, but
But are they required to do that, or is that at the discretion of the judge?
I believe it's a requirement.
Yeah.
Confirm with just please, but what year that changed, but it's been in more recent history.
I think the case that changed that is Blazina that changed it. So if there's any of these qualifiers for indigency, then those can't be included anymore. So it would be requiring the signature, signing a promissory note and then taking a civil action to go after those partial fees. We've done some analysis on this and we would likely have to file a civil action to collect each one of those, and the filing fee is $290 before any of the work is done.
For each case.
To perfect our promissory note, essentially to record it. Yeah. And then you're talking about how do you collect? Is it county who's collecting? Are we putting it through a collection company?
Taking their huge cut.
Yeah, and the timing for collecting these things, I mean, it's real money, but I don't think we would expect if $500,000 was assigned by pretrial. I don't think we could expect to collect $500,000 in any given year. Over a long period of time, but eventually after 5-10 years, you're getting to collect those things on a regular basis. So. Anyway, just for your awareness of what's some of the revenues that we're losing.
There have been discussions with Tim Fitzgerald and some of the staff, so it's out there. There just hasn't been a lot of recent work done on it yet, but can definitely be revisited.
What's the time frame on the MacArthur grant again? Remind me that.
We're funded, we've been talking with them. Looks like we'll be funded through the end of 2026 for all the current positions. So then the funding would trickle maybe into 2027 a little bit, but it's looking very solid through the end of 2026 for the help desk out front and for both the pretrial service officer positions.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron's got some pretty impressive numbers too that you can show through a presentation about how well the monitored release is working. There's a lot of confidence by district court in that program, and it's showing up by the population in the jail and the releases in jail. So on the gross misdemeanors and misdemeanors. So we need to invite Aaron back and give a presentation on that. I think you'll be impressed how well that's going.
Just one clarity, that's a supported release program in district court. Just not to confuse it with our felon monitored release, but yeah, slight clarification.
So the potential to cut the position to 80%. So we're talking about like $16,000, right? How much would that impact? Do you think, like on a Sunday or a Saturday, whatever, on a weekend? The ability for judges to release folks that are eligible for release.
It could, I mean, I looked at the numbers from this weekend of the defendants that we prepared evaluations for, that met our criteria. 48% of those got released this weekend, so that was a really good number. Basically, we would have to cut back from 2 employees on a Sunday, which is what we normally do, to about 1. And then we may have to prioritize, okay, which cases are we gonna look at? Serious, most violent offenses. We would have to prioritize, kind of triage, what are we going to actually work on this Sunday so that we can get enough work done for the court, and what can be held over until Monday. So that would be some real cutbacks in services that we provide. But yeah, just to speak to your question, I think the evaluations that we're preparing on weekends now are contributing And very much helping towards the release rates so that our jails aren't
Right,
bottling up.
cause I'm just
on the
thinking
weekends.
like a cost of 10 people spending another night in jail.
Yeah.
Every weekend adds up.
It adds up there and then it adds up on Monday dockets. The size of the dockets get bigger because people are hell. We're running overtime on dockets, transport's having to stay late, our stuff. I mean, it just kind of. It seems small, but it compounds on a Monday afternoon.
Probably would add up to more than 16,000. I'm just guessing.
That would be my point, yeah. Sorry, what, Mike?
I said a holiday weekend would be even worse. than that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it, everybody.
You're doing that. I'll take you to do this.
Oh, where next? My computer's been updating. I just opened it.
Is that convenient?
Yes,
There we go.
just in time. I do believe Tammy is here from WSU. And so she
See you over in the corner there.
she will present on WSU for board consideration. And then if there's more time, we will just kind of talk through the entire list after WSU, but we will, but there is a PowerPoint that Tammy sent us. Thank you.
Morning, Betty.
Good morning.
So I'm here to tell you what WSU does, extension. The history of WSU in Spokane County started in 1937. So we've had a long history of working together to support the community. And as you can see up on the slide there, these are 2024 numbers. So we reached 50,000 people directly and over 150,000 indirectly. This is with a staff of 8 people. We have 5 people that work on programming and 3 people that work with support in 2024. The rest of that page is just a brief explanation of what our programs are. And so if you want to go to the next page, these are our impact statements from 2024. One of the programs that we do, of course, is Master Gardeners. And the Master Gardeners, we have, I believe, 166 volunteers in 2024. They provided 16,683 hours of education to Spokane County residents. They also do a plant sale every spring. We raised $37,200 from that plant sale, and the Master Gardener Foundation donates a lot of that income to support one of our WSU workers. So they provide, I believe it's $21,000 per year to support that worker. We also provide the plants that we don't sell, we donate to the community. And the next page, this talks about what we do for water quality. Do a lot of water quality education. 2024, it was 750 residents that we helped educate about fertilizer and pesticide use. And then 1,500 residents took our classes about water conservation techniques. Go to the next page. This looks a little busy, but it is an explanation of what the Master Gardeners do and what Spokane Conservation does and how we work together to provide residents with the education. For instance, Under the local food production, the website, we have a website library of over 300 publications that are free to the public. And those are written by master gardeners. The conservation district works more with large scale producers. We work directly with the county. Under horticulture, again, our plant sale, we provide thousands and thousands of plants. The conservation district does a tree sale. So we're different there. We also do gardening related classes directly to the residents at libraries, at community centers. The conservation district does more things like wildlife sanctuary classes. They don't deal directly with residents in their gardens. And if you go to the next page. Our volunteers, Master Gardener volunteers provide youth education for after-school express programs both during the year and then during the summer express programs. The conservation district, we do have a curriculum, but they provide the curriculum to the teachers and the teachers have to present it to the kids. So there's the difference. We provide the direct education, the Master Gardeners provide the direct education. Conservation just provides the curriculum. Okay, next page. So this is our Strengthening Families program. I apologize, it's mislabeled there. It's not a 4-H program. It is a youth families program. And what it is, it's a 7-week class provided to families. They do a session with parents, they do a session with kids, then they bring them together, they feed them dinner, talk about what they learned. They learn how to have meetings. It's a very robust research-based program that really gives results as commission wants. And one of our staff provides training for all of the community partners for that program. So we don't do the actual program, we do the training and we do the evaluation to make sure the program is being taught the way it's supposed to. Next page. So this is 4-H, yay 4-H, it's teens advocating for health. And for the past 2 years in a row, our teams have won national awards for the projects they've done. 2 years ago, they did kind care kits for the siblings of the Ronald McDonald House. So not for the patients, but for the siblings of the patients. This past year, 2025, they did a Leaf It Up microgreens kits. So they provided over 600 kits statewide to colleges for freshmen just coming into college, because they learned that there's food insecurity for freshmen in college. And so this is a way to encourage them to learn how to grow microgreens and help. We also have military grants that we receive every year. So we go out and do 4-H programs with the military, teach them how to garden, we do STEM work with them. They have hundreds of entries in the Spokane Interstate Fair, and they're so proud of all the work that they've done with this program. Another program that we did recently was the Washington State Opiate education program. So the teens chose what project they wanted to do, and they created a traveling medicine cabinet, and it explained what opiates are, why they're so dangerous, and how to dispose of them properly. You're not using them. Next page. So this is our farming education. So Dr. Paul Cooper is a faculty in our office, and he does the YQCA program. This educates youth on how to raise farm animals responsibly and in a safe manner so that when they sell that meat at the interstate fair, it's good quality meat. There's no pathogens or dangerous organisms that could be passed on to the residents that eat them. So this teaches kids how to safely raise. Dr. Cooper also, he has over $200,000 worth of grants that he helps supports the residents. He uses these funds to, like the Lamb 300 program, which is here, it reduces the amount kids have to pay to take these programs. So use fee for the kids. And up at Deer Park, he was providing livestock marketing education. And again, those grants reduced the fee from $250 to $35 per participant. Page. So tax swap is a event we have every spring. And it raises funds to help the 4-H large animal program, reduces the fees for the kids to attend the camps. So we have 4 camps throughout the year. The money raised from this tax swap event helps reduce the fees for the kids. It also helps the residents. So bring in their gear that they don't want anymore. It's a great big sale. So other people buy this equipment and it raises a lot of money. It provides service for the residents to move their gear they're no longer using and provides other people to buy this gear at a discounted price. So it's great all around. So here we also have the 4-H education program. Again, this is research-based education, and 4-H is based on positive youth development. So the skills that they use in all of these programs are based on research-based skills that provide them with resilience, confidence, and helps them throughout their whole life. Okay, so that's all I have there. The rest, there are other things in this packet. I'm not going to go through the rest of it. They're just things that you could read about. And I'm sorry I did not send a slide about the budget, but I have a handout.
We're not going around just by way of reminder. You recall this spring, we went over the outside agency bills multiple times. I'm sure you all remember it. The request from the board to WSU was to trim the budget by at least 50%. That was the request that went in. The board wavered between 50% and everything. Last year they had 537,000. So that would put it at 268,500. This year, they have done a significant reduction. Their work, they have one less FTE, and that was actually a forced attrition, we'll call it. So that they have done some difficult choices already to bring their budget down. And so the question before the board is, where are you wanting to place this in the outside agency list? If you look in your packet online under cooperative extension, you do have one of these budget sheets in your big
In your 2026 budget folder.
budget folder. So we pre-populated it with the 268 for the year, because that was our direction from the board to start the conversation at least half. And then the other piece was, instead of the board doing both a contract for service and some direct payments for staffing positions, the last we heard from the board was to put everything into the contract for service, or just be one contract. And then WSU could use those funds for positions if they so chose, instead of having two funding streams. So that's where we're operating from at this point, because that's the last direction we had from the board, albeit it was definitely preliminary direction. And so Tammy has put this together to kind of bring you up to speed to where they are. So they're requesting about 50,000 more than what would be 50%. There's a 218,000 reduction and change. The board is at a 268. And so that's where things are.
It's given the 318, 358.
Correct. I was looking at it from the reduction, they reduced by it, but either way, it's about $50,000.
It's down from the 537.
Yes,
It's
down
a
from 537.
41%.
They've done a 41%, a significant reduction. Anything to add to that, Tessa?
Nope, you
So-
captured it.
So it's really just a board discussion and possible decision.
Commissioner District.
They're their own tab from the 2026 budget folder.
Can you pull up the one in the 2026 budget? Yeah, it's the same.
Right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. I know one thing we discussed when we had a pre-meeting about a month ago. I appreciate you guys looking for ways to help us with our budget challenges, so thank you. One thing that we discussed was maybe making it a reimbursable contract rather than a flat.
Just providing a check.
Right, because in the past, we've provided a check.
Right.
But you may have positions, like I know this next year, your director position is not filled yet. Because Gary retired. So like that position may not be filled for half a year. And that might be your their 50,000. So my thought would be making it a reimbursable contract would get us probably closer to the dollar amount, but I didn't know if we had talked to our grants and contracts team to find out if it would just cost more money to manage the contract, because that would defeat the purpose.
I don't believe that'd be a significant amount of work. Heather's usually listening, so chime in, Heather, if I'm saying something wrong. It's not a huge contract with lots of touch points.
It's mainly like, it would be like a month, you would be billing us for the monthly staffing costs or miscellaneous costs. Anyway, that was just a thought, because I don't know, a lot's going on with WSU these days, and their WSU as an organization is trying to manage its budget. So I'm not sure, there might be a time period where that director position isn't filled. So would that be savings back to the county?
Yes, yeah, it will probably be at least 6 months.
So, I mean, you could reduce it, or you could just make it reimbursable and then know that this one position is likely not gonna be filled for 3 to 6 months. I don't know. So those are just some things that we were throwing around as ideas, because I think you do have some contracts with other counties that are reimbursable.
Yes.
rather than a set
Some
grant.
counties in Washington state are cost reimbursable.
Okay.
And that's fine, we can do that.
As long as it's not too much of a burden on others' team.
I honestly don't believe this will be a huge burden. We have sent, just to remind you, the official letter and about October 1st. The board voted on that Tuesday. Gina sent a hard copy to Dr. McCachran. And at WSU, I forwarded an email copy to Tammy for records, just stating how we're gonna make the changes to the service contract. It's not no surprise to anybody, but I did get it in writing prior to October 1st to allow whatever changes the board decides to take place correctly.
I do just want to mention, if there are more cuts, we will have to be cutting some of our programs. Because we're at bare bones staff right now.
As on the, on the first page, of your presentation, it has a breakdown by district. Is that, am I accurate in thinking that that is by commissioner district?
Yes.
That is broken down?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah, and
okay.
those are 2024 numbers.
Okay, okay.
The reimbursable makes a lot of sense. Seems like a better way to track the actual costs of the expenditures. I would second that idea. That's a good way to go.
I guess, I mean, there's a lot of programs you talked about here. A lot of it, I assume, goes well beyond the amount of dollars that we give you. I mean, is there any way you can break that to what does the money that the county provides pay for?
Uh,
I mean, it's just, I mean, you have such a large scope of work. There's a funding source that's well beyond what the county does. So I mean, what does the county fund here? I mean, there a lot of the numbers were based on volunteer hours and the, you know, the value of those volunteer hours. That doesn't really speak to the dollars that the county is providing. So, I mean, I guess if there's a reduction in the amount the county provides, what wouldn't get done, and would WSU, you know, the university that you guys are under, would they supplement any of that funding that goes away? And you know, because I know it's also on your intro sheet, the first one here, it says that apparently Spokane County started providing dollars back in 1937 to help kind of subsidize this work. I guess I don't know why that happened in 1937 and kind of why it has continued, but I mean, would WSU come in and fill the gaps, I guess?
Probably not.
Okay,
So, the county's budget pays for the salaries of the 7 staff that we currently have at Extension. And that staff does all these programs. In it and more. Like, I do food preservation, but I also do the Cuddling Mom Project. Plus, I manage everything and I'm the interim county director. So, and then we have 2 4-H, full-time 4-H staff. We have 1 full-time master gardener, 1 part-time master gardener support. And then we have our administrative staff. 1 is a full-time, 1 is 0.6. So that is what the county is providing. Salaries for all the people that do these programs.
okay.
And the relationship started with the Smith-Weaver Act, which was passed by Congress. I don't remember the year. And it allowed the counties to work with the university to provide education to its residents. That was the whole purpose of the Smith-Weaver Act. And that's why the partnership started,
Okay.
to provide education to the county's residents.
I'm sure, I think there was a budget that when we had the pre-meeting that tried to break out a little bit, WSU's contribution versus. Most of the professors are paid by WSU, the ones that oversee, and it's like. And then the staff that you're describing that work with the community are the ones that we help subsidize, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. But I even
Faculty
some,
is mostly paid by WSU. In the past, I think the budget for the county director was only 15,000. And that was just for a small part.
so it's kind of, there is some matching, if I remember on that budget, maybe we can get a hold of that budget that he presented, sorry, who was with you that day, meeting?
Mike Gaffney.
Yes, Mike presented one that maybe would be helpful
I think
to,
Tammy had it. But I know I have it, cause
Yeah.
I was looking at it every day with,
I think I still have it
The
in my
budget
office
with the
too.
individual salaries.
Well, it just had kind of a breakdown
Yeah.
of WSU pays this much towards the director and Spokane County has this
That's it.
much, yeah.
Right.
and then showed the change.
Yes.
Show the change, so I think I have that in paper form, I don't know if we
I
got
can
it,
send it to
Yeah.
you electron.
that'd be great.
But I think, you know, with the reducing by a lot, I mean, we may know next year there may be more cuts needed, so I mean, we can't guarantee where we're at this year versus next year. Like all our outside agencies, that we'll have to still keep looking at further reductions, but I think happy with any or reduction, but then doing it on a reimbursement basis, so that way we're not doing additional paying for additional things that we're not doing.
I do want to mention that in the past, if we received any funds from the county that were over and above what was spent on salaries for these programs, we put that money back into the building. For instance, we just paid for a security fence on the east side of the building. We had a fence for the tenants in the building to use to secure their vehicles, the USDA. They park their vehicles in there so that now they're secure, they don't get tampered with because of the location that we're in. So we put a lot of money back into the building itself. Felt that was our responsibility to take care of the building. And so a lot of those funds went back.
I second your comments or third. I think 41% cut is significant. Reimbursable contract creates the possibility of even more savings. And we keep evaluating next year, knowing that we still need to make final decisions at the end. I mean, if we get to the end of the line and we're still needing to find every couple $1,000s, we can revisit, but I think it's a good placeholder for now.
Can I, and I think as of today's discussion, I would agree with Commissioner Jordan on sort of as we move forward from today, let's use that as a placeholder.
Gave me 3, so I will 4. We'll plug that number in as the
I don't think-
tentative number.
I don't think Josh is finished.
But I was wondering if I could ask on
The decision.
on sort of your numbers as far as the reach of WSU extension. Can I ask, how do you define reach? Where it says district or direct reach?
So the direct reach is the count of people that attended our programs.
Okay. Does that include things like the fair? Like if somebody were to stop by your booth at
No,
the fair, is that a
no, this is
reach?
classes,
Okay,
you know, horse camps, people that come in to get their pressure gauges checked every year. Yeah, it's direct contact with a particular person.
okay. I just, one of the things that stands out to me, and I remember several years ago when Gary Varela had come in, and because I think Commissioner French had asked for a kind of a scatter plot of the county to kind of where the residents are of the individuals that utilize your services, and this data kind of holds true that the majority of the votes tend to be in the city of Spokane, which is kind of surprising because so many of your programs have an ag or agricultural base to them or agricultural history, but the majority of the folks that you work with are actually in the city of Spokane. Can you speak to why you think that is?
Honestly, no, I don't know why.
Okay.
That's a great question.
Like I would assume the majority of your 4-H kids don't live in the city of Spokane. They're probably out in rural areas.
So
Yes,
I would
you
say
know,
a lot of the
and a lot of-
partner programs.
Okay.
yes.
I think a lot of them come from the city.
That's true.
Like Valley, I mean, like my district.
Yeah,
four is huge.
your district, I know, was surprisingly
Yes.
large for, but you
But
you
it's-
have a lot of agricultural land.
But then we've got, yeah.
Like
but
Commissioner
one-
French and my district have a great deal of
and if you
ag
go to
land
the,
and
like 4-H
numbers are
program,
pretty low.
they've done their 4-H auctions and
Uh-huh.
I've attended. It's people in the rural county areas, because they're helping with the 4-H programs at the high schools, the outlying areas. But I think you see a lot of majority, the Master Gardeners is a huge program. And the food preservation program is also another big program. And people, buying the canned foods and what does that mean? And, that's the program, right?
Right, yes.
So it's a lot of people in the cities, but outside the cities as well. But I mean, I think you tend to get more people like, and that's where I say like even in the valley, calling, say, okay, I haven't canned. I used to see my mom do it. How do I do this?
Right.
Or it used to be more of a rural thing and it's becoming more of a urban type thing. So that's what I've seen just from what I know. And I was talking to Vicky Carter last week. I was out at the Vets on the Farm. And so she and I were talking about what the different programs were and I ran in Pat months. So very passionate about the Master Garden and will be coming to talk to us.
Pat's coming to talk to you.
Yeah, she wants to come. I told her she was welcome to come talk during our public hearings on budget. So I think she's going to try to make one of them.
Great.
That's what I think is happening with it.
Yeah, I agree. The Master Gardener program reach is huge and that's more in the city, in the urban area. The ag people don't talk to our Master Gardeners as much.
They tend, which is part of that, what the conservation district does versus the master.
Correct, yes.
Showing some of that.
Works with producers more.
Pretty good. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, Jeff, you're not in the house.
I think there was a we'll go out, like, Tammy, so at this point, we're gonna put in these numbers as presented. The board decides to revisit for any reason, I'll be sure and should you're aware. But that's where we are at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate it.
Also in your budget packet is the outside agency sheet that you're used to seeing. Actually, no, it's page 28 of today's packet. So just going through where we are on outside agencies, starting at the top, is page 28 of today's packet. Remind you, the air pollution took, I think it was just shy of a 7% cut. And so that one was locked in. We got that number from Commissioner French. AGC to Head Start, we left where it was. Anything dashed out like bike swap, the board had given us direction to forego that in 26. You'll see a slight reduction to the Chase Youth Commission of 7,000. The Children's Waiting Room, Commissioner Waldron, any update on your efforts around that?
I've been working with the Vanessa Behan Crisis Nursery. They've been reaching out to see if they could find, private donors to donate to them. And but I haven't gotten an update lately. They have gotten at least 2 law firms to donate, so they're working on it. the goal would be to get private donors and reduce it to one employee with volunteers. So I should have more information in a week or two.
And you are working with Judge Samlin as well.
Yes, Judge Zamlin actually has been really helpful and so we we hit a little, the thought process was to allow those law firms to be able to advertise, but then the judges conferred and they decided probably not fair to have certain law firms be able to put their names on like posters or different things that said sponsored by, so you know, just to
How
keep
much
it.
is the donation worth?
I know.
They couldn't even label the bad kids as sponsored by.
So we're also looking into a new video that would be a little updated and maybe, you know, encourage the jurors to give more of their juror fees. The video is very old that the jurors see. So we'll see. I'm hoping to have more information. I just called Amy from Vanessa Behan last week, just left her a message saying, how's it going? But they have a couple that she's reached out to 4 different firms. So it's just a question of whether they can raise enough with the juror fees that we get, because the juror fees aren't listed there. The juror
Correct,
fees are
this is a
separate.
general fund.
Right.
Contribution, the juror fees are a significant amount, I'm not remembering it, you remember
I
it?
think it was about 40,000.
That was a bit
Yeah.
behind, I was thinking 30 to 40.
On top of that
On
amount?
top of.
Oh,
you
okay.
see.
This is a
So if
general
they
fund,
were
yeah.
to reduce it to 1 employee with volunteers. And then if you had contributions plus the jury's fee, we were thinking maybe we could try it for a year, see if that would work. Well, ask for multiple year donations. So we've been working on this for about 4 or 5 months and we're hoping, I'll hopefully have an update in the next couple of weeks. So.
County's contribution would be the in-kind of the space.
Right, the in-kind space, the maintenance, janitorial, and the jurors' fees. And so hopefully with a new video, you might bump up a juror's fee going, oh, okay, this is a good program, I want to donate to it. Maybe it would give a slight increase. So we'll see. We're trying, yeah. Vanessa Behan's been really great because they really believe in the service.
So at this point, this is wiped out on the general fund side. There would still be the county contribution on the rent, overhead, utilities, and juror fee donations. Next one is status quo. Health district, the numbers we plugged in are from the presentation that they brought over a couple weeks ago. And just to remind you, the TB program went up by 155 and change. The general support went down by 600 or 700. It's a net
Actually, yeah,
difference of about.
We have a new, no, we have a
I
new
was gonna say,
TV number.
a little off.
We have a new TV number.
We have both are new numbers.
They presented last week at the health district on the budget. We can get that.
So the numbers I have are for when they presented it here.
They ran more numbers and they reduced the TV.
It's like 515.
Yeah, I didn't think 555 looked right. But
Yeah.
let me,
And then the general support numbers went down by another 100,000.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So we'll update that when we get those new numbers. NACO stage in the community is not funded right now. Party Spokane was cut by half. We go from a two member to 1 member. The lobbyists are updated per the contracts. So you'll see a slight increase in the state contract. That's just for the state amount, that's per the contract. WASAC, we just got confirmed. It's a few dollars shy of 160, so we left it there. It's 159 and change. Chambers, we did reduce the valley from 12.5 back to 10. 10 is the membership level. The extra 2,500 historically has been to sponsor a particular event, you know.
Manufacturing numbers.
And so at this point, we're reducing just to the membership. The other chambers were just at a membership level, so they have stayed where they are. The MAC at this point is not receiving funds. They received a lot of ARP funds. over 300,000 worth, and so decision was made to forego that one in 26. GSI is one that we need to discuss where it was left. The 200,000, it ranged from the 25,000, which is what I put in as the most conservative choice at this point. From that angle, thought process was a step down reduction starting at 25 this year. The other was a thought of 113,000, which would be 87,000 reduction, and that was made up the GSI visionary membership is 53,000. And then there was another 60,000 when they came and presented that was needed matching fees to against the ADO and some of the other state funds. So those were kind of the bookends that were being discussed, a reduction of 25, a reduction of 87. And that is the one that is currently, now that we have WSU's number at least locked in for this point of the budget. Of course, it is locked in until you take a final vote. Are you guys in a place to make a decision on GSI today?
I mean, I'm still at the 175, just because if we reduce it further, it's. And it potentially affects, I think we have to, really talk about what the matching is for the ADO.
Correct.
Because I think there was some confusion there. I think I was the one saying I wanted the 25 and keep working at getting it down further. So that's where I'm at.
Were they going to come back and give us any more info on what is the ADO match that?
You say that. I'll put it in. They did fill out the paperwork that we ask groups that get essentially a grant from the county to do. And Heather has it.
It's in your 2026 shared budget folder.
Okay.
In a subfolder called outside agency grant submissions.
I was gonna pull that and make sure it was in the packet today and I forgot.
So you have information in that folder from Chase Youth, GSI, AGC, extra, and then WSU extensions information from them. So that should all be in that subfolder for you.
To stay on time, would you guys like to look at that data and then come back?
So the other thought was 113 is the funding.
Correct, 113, which was 53 for the visionary membership level, and 60 was, if my memory's correct, they said the portion of our additional that went to the match, that would be what they needed to find, a source of funds for, if we reduced it that much. So that was, I believe Commissioner Kearns threw that one out as, and then those would be the bookends of the conversation from last time, between 113 contribution or 175 contribution. There is the packet that we can easily send around to you guys and bring back next opportunity.
Yeah, I'd like to look at that. My vague recollection was we were waiting on something from them to look at. So I'll take a look at that.
So the one that I'm looking at though, that I just went to the folder, Tessa.
Mhm.
So it looks like it was filled out in July though.
Yes,
Okay. Did they come and present before that?
yes.
Oh,
Conversations are in the spring.
sorry. It's been so many. I'm like, when did they first come? Okay. So the one that says 7/8/2025, that is more information in there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I see it too, so I don't need it sent to me. What a nicely organized folder that Tessa created.
Great job.
Wonderful.
So glad it was in there.
So that's for me in order too.
Ah.
Coming forward to.
We gotta get it figured out. Okay, so we're gonna delay that one. On the PDAs. I mean, it's just the tax increment that we're contributing, so it's not a.
That's a plug number that we think is a good budget estimation of what that amount would be, but that's not probably beyond. It's just.
University district is a set amount, correct, but the others are not.
given to
Right.
our-
They're variable, they're just estimates this time based on all the known information.
I mean, it's kind of like. Those are set amounts that we did, they're contracted, so we're not changing.
Correct, that,
Right, it's like-
those
no.
really are choices,
Yeah, so I think
unless you
we
were to
need
change
put-
agreements, which nobody's talking,
Yeah, I think next to PDAs, it's just set their contract.
just add contract amount, okay.
I would almost do that with some of these because.
The ones that aren't real choices,
Yeah.
make note of.
Like aging long-term care. That's
Eric,
by 4.
an error, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, those are set amounts that we don't really, you may even just make a separate section. Like, we don't have a
Just
lot
kind
of
of,
choice.
kind of gray it out, like that's not one that
Yeah.
to be changed, that's.
Yeah, we like
locked
to
in.
give you, so you know what kind of is making up that total number, so we
Sometimes
don't
it's just-
miss anything, but yeah, we understand they're not decision points for you.
We'll
Right,
work on a formatting.
because I think sometimes people are looking at these numbers thinking we have choices and we don't have choices on these numbers,
Yeah, some of them are what they are.
so. But yet we've got people looking and saying, oh, you're outside agency, just cut all of it, you know, it's like, oh, can't just do that. Correct. So.
So you guys go looking at the GSI paperwork and then we can bring it back.
Yeah.
Another day on that one. But we do have the tentative for WSU. So thank you for that. And then I think we can. Council for Defense is here with really big stacks of paper, so. They win the show and tell prize.
You guys were worried about the link. Live. Instead.
Oh, that's props.
Buried in paper.
This is part of a weight training program.
It is. Mike now knows why I have to go to the gym at lunch all the time, just so I can carry my binders everywhere I go. So.
You're both welcome to sit up at the head of the table.
Oh.
She's.
You see the bullseye over here. Okay,
Are these the updated ones? Slides, do you know? I don't know.
The ones I mailed this morning.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Good morning, everybody. I hope you all got to enjoy the lovely end of summer weather that we got this past weekend. So I'm just gonna start by saying the size of your quality of your defense should not come down to the size of your wallet. Next slide. At the time of my budget submission, I had no vacant FTE positions. Since then, I have had an attorney resign. I have requested permission to post that position and get it filled. I'm still waiting for that approval. It is funded in my 2026 budget as an attorney 3 step 2. I bring that up because I will need additional budget money that I didn't ask for if my budget asked for this attorney position if the replacement I hire comes in at a higher step. It has to be someone with experience because our attorney 3s are attorneys that can take the most serious of cases and qualify for those. And I don't know what recruitment will look like. So if it is like a lateral move from the public defender, if that person's on a higher step, I wouldn't have that in my budget as it was submitted. So I just wanted to give that caveat to the budget that was submitted in before you today. Otherwise, we were able to stay within our target 2025 budget. This was mainly due to in 2024, I had 2 attorney 3s who were at step 13 resign, and their replacements came in as attorney 3 step 1. You've always been a good steward of the taxpayers' money. Our staffing levels have not increased since 2019. Our budget has stayed mainly flat, as you can see in our expenses there, with little increases, and typically that's dealing with different experts and contract increases. We also routinely give money back from our budget at the end of the year. There's no end of the year Christmas shopping, as it was described to me at Leader Up. We only spend the money on the things we absolutely need to spend money on. Next slide. This slide breaks down our salary and M&Os. As you can see, and I know Colin touched on this in his presentation last week, the majority of our budget is salary, not M&Os. Next slide. We did follow the instructions and we halved our travel budget. And again, the 2 attorneys not at step 13 is the only way we were able to maintain the current budget as for this year. This did allow us to anticipate a significant increase in our Axon Discovery contract, which is how we receive digital discovery from various law enforcement agencies throughout the state. And we also were able to make additions to our Westlaw legal research contract. Next slide. So as you are all aware, these are what our former caseload standards had been: 100 felony cases, 400 misdemeanor cases, 250 juvenile cases. Next slide. And this is what we're looking at for the future, both under the revised WSBA standards and the Washington Supreme Court order. By final implementation, it will be 47 felony cases and 120 misdemeanor cases, and that includes 4 juvenile attorneys. Next slide. The biggest impact for CFD will be in our juvenile department. Previously, juvenile attorneys could have 250 cases. It could be 250 felonies, it could be 250 misdemeanors, or some combination thereof. They will ultimately be capped at 47 felonies and 120 misdemeanors per year at the time of final implementation. So because of that, Counsel for Defense did make a number of capital requests. Next slide. First, the space. Colin is aware, as is Mike, budget from some prior conversations. I am hoping that Counsel for Defense will be the office that grows with the implementation of the new caseload standards, which is why I'm requesting space now to address the needs we see now, but also asking to have space that would allow us to continue to grow as we meet these new standards. I have $4 million. I don't exactly know what space will look like. I am still trying to forgive Tessa for the amazing tour she gave me of the area she now occupies. But we do share a wall with the Spokane County Bar Association. One of our attorneys' offices actually is our fire escape route. So there's a door that leads into the SCBA office. When our attorney sneezes, he typically gets a bless you from the other side. So that is the space we are in right now. Next slide. Based on the caseload calculators that we completed when the new caseload standards came out, I believe we have a need for 5 additional attorney 1 or 2s in our juvenile department. I have recently become aware that the county knows you guys received RCW 10-101 funding, which is the money that comes to help public defense costs through the Office of Public Defense. Our numbers are included as far as how many cases CFD has. It's included in the application for the entire county for those 10-101 funds. It is not money that's ever been given to CFD. It's always stayed within the public defender's budget, but I understand from Colin's presentation last week that he has indicated a proposal to fund one of the juvenile attorneys I'm requesting with 10-101 funds. Obviously, it's you all decide how those funds are spent, but that is a potential funding source for my capital request. Next slide. I'm also requesting an additional criminal defense investigator. Currently, Counsel for Defense is at 1 investigator for 7 attorneys. As the board knows, the ratio that is suggested is a 1 and 4. An additional investigator would get us closer to that ratio, but also help support additional attorney 1 or 2s that I'm asking for in juvenile. Next slide. I'm also asking for an additional paralegal 2. Again, we're at 1 paralegal for 7 attorneys. The ratio is 1 for every 4. So this would help get us more aligned with the current ratio and again, help support new hires. Next slide. I'm also requesting a legal secretary. Our legal secretary also performs our office reception duties. For almost a year, I was able to have a extra extra help staff person through Blake monies that was able to assist with some of our secretary duties, and it was a huge relief for my office. So it was very disappointing when those monies went away, but it is something that we have needed for some time, and it has been a part of previous budget requests. Next slide. These next slides explain why we are necessary cost. I understand from instructions we were given by budget that we needed to, justify what services we're providing, and are they mandatory or are they necessary costs, which is just something we've done in the past. We are a necessary cost, one that should be borne by our state and not so much you here in the county. Hopefully that will change here, but I did want to still go ahead and justify ourselves. We have the United States Constitution, Washington State Constitution, Supreme Court cases. Next slide. We have our Spokane County Code of Ordinances. Next slide. And again, I know this one might change, but these are just ways explaining why we are a necessary cost for the county. Next slide. This is an example of the certificate the attorneys must sign quarterly to show that they are in compliance with the various standards. I wanted to call your attention to number 6. It has recently changed via Supreme Court order, and it specifically references the revised WSBA standards. And so that is what the attorneys are certifying to. And I would also call your attention to number 7, which says an attorney must have an office that accommodates confidential meetings, which is why I brought up the flesh use from the SCBA next door. That attorney cannot meet with clients in his office and have them be confidential, so he has to utilize our conference room. Next slide. Wanted to look for a moment at the improvements the county has made with law enforcement. So there has been a record hiring of sheriff's deputies. The county invested in the real-time crime center. The county also signed a contract and employs Flock throughout our county. And then the voters in Spokane Valley recently approved a public safety sales tax increase, which will result in 10 additional officers in Spokane Valley on the street. Next slide. As it was addressed earlier this month at the seat of the county, there's been 15 deputies hired in the last 18 months, which means the sheriff office is fully staffed for the first time in 20 years. Next slide. If we think of public safety as a train, public defense is the caboose. The cops make arrests and the prosecutors file charges. They are the ones driving the train. Our county has consistently increased funding for law enforcement without having a proportional increase to public defense budgets. Quite simply, more money for cops means more criminal cases are being filed, and we must have investments in public defense to meet this demand. Next slide. This chart shows the highest criminal filings within our state. King County has the highest number of filings. Spokane has the second highest amount of criminal filings for the entire state. Yet our population is not the second highest in the state. All of our top 6 counties for criminal filings other than Spokane have also had some type of case weighting or caseload caps in existence. And I just wanted to draw your attention to how many cases we actually have in Spokane. I know Colin presented last week on what other agencies or counties are spending on public defense, and Spokane is significantly lower, but it's interesting to see how many filings we have for our population. Next slide. This slide shows the case credits or type of case that was adopted pursuant to the National Public Defender Workload Study by our Washington State Bar Association. In this slide, I mainly wanted to highlight the clawback clause that is in those standards. Because if a case resolves relatively quickly before an attorney has done significant work on the matter, the attorney will be credited with a proportional reduced amount of credits than initially assigned. And this is why time tracking will absolutely have to be mandatory moving forward. We have to have a mechanism to see how many hours our attorneys are actually spending on a case. Because if they're not spending the case credits that have been allowed to them, we have to take them back from their bank of credits so that they can take on additional cases. Slide. This is a comparison between the WSBA standards and the recent Supreme Court order. The WSB standards does have a 3-year timeline for implementation. The Supreme Court order, on the other hand, says effective on January 1st, 2026, the caseload standards for each full-time appointed attorney for any 12-month period shall be 47 felony case credits or 120 misdemeanor credits. The Supreme Court order did allow for delayed implementation over 10 years, but the order says implementation must be accomplished as soon as reasonably possible. The WSBA standards did adopt the mandatory case weighting out of the study, and the Supreme Court endorsed the importance of case weighting. Next slide. So here's the breakdown in those new categories of crimes. In the past, the standards and these for qualification has just looked at really class A, class B, class C, and then sex cases. The new standards now look at life without parole, which are third strike cases, felony high murders, felony high sex, felony high other, and then our felony mid and felony low. Based on the average hours per case is where the case weights are derived from. And then I have added a column converting the hourly time so that we can see how many weeks they're really saying each case should take. I bring that to your attention because a murder trial is going to take at least 2 weeks. And so we're down to 4.2 weeks left in the amount of time that is being credited under the new caseload standards. Next slide. This chart further expands on what time is typically necessary for any given case. If we look again at just at a felony high murder, it's supposed to be 248 hours or 6.2 weeks. And then if we look at the cost if this was sent to private contract counsel, the contract amount would be $1,800 for the initial 20 hours with an hourly rate for anything past those initial 20 hours. So we can take 248 minus 20 and see that the hourly rate is going to be around $25,000. And then when we add back in the $1,800, that is where we get to $26,880 total attorney time and cost. All of these have asterisks because none of these amounts include the costs for investigations, expert witnesses, litigation, social workers. All of those costs for cases that are handled by CFD are included in our M&Os. We have separate expert witness and other professional services, and we cover that within our own budget. But when a case is sent out of the county, because my office or Colin's office can't handle it, the county has to pay not only the total attorney costs, but these costs as well. So it's always been financially prudent to handle as many cases in-house as possible. Next slide. Some of you might wonder what it is us attorneys do. And so I wanted to go through and look at how we spend our time in court. We have to attend first appearance hearings where bond and release conditions are set. We attend arraignment hearings where not guilty or guilty pleas are entered. There are various motion hearings on any given case. Every case has a trial readiness hearing where we're letting the courts know if we're ready for trial or need additional time. If we are ready for trial, we have an omnibus hearing, which is a status conference to discuss discovery matters. The case is resolving, it goes to plea and sentencing. Otherwise, it's going to trial. If a case resolves and it's in one of our therapeutic courts, there are continued review hearings and violation hearings. And in many cases, there are competency issues that have to be litigated through various hearings. And so this is time that attorneys are present in court, and it must be accounted for when we look at how much time a case requires. And so our previous standards of 150 felonies a year equated to approximately 12.75 hours per case. That's how many hours each attorney had to work on a case, regardless of case type. The amount of time attorneys are spending in court is almost equal to or in excess of that 12.75 hours of just their time in court. Next slide. So in addition to what attorneys do in court, they also have to receive their file and familiarize themselves with the case. They have to have initial contact with the client prior to the first court hearing. They have to review all the discovery The body cameras, all cases have hours and hours of digital discovery. The more serious cases will have hundreds of hours of digital discovery. Not only does the attorney have to go through all that, it has to then be reviewed with the client. There has to be an investigation where they're looking at potential defenses, the need for experts, whether there's mitigation that needs to be done, and they have to do victim witness interviews. They engage in negotiations, and then they attend all those other court hearings as well. Next slide. Some of you who are visual learners, I wanted to bring to your attention a homicide case we have in our office at this time. That bottom is a screenshot of our Axon digital discovery summary of all the items that are in evidence on this one particular case that under the new standards would have 243 hours to work. So we have almost 64 hours of videos, 7 hours of audio, 40 hours of flock information, cell phone and text message downloads at about 80 hours. And then for you, even want to say things in person, these are the discovery binders for this one particular case. So we have 3 volumes of actual just police reports from various officers. We have an entire binder of search warrants for this one case. And then 2 of these binders are solely in regard to flock information in this case. $12.75 hours is not enough. We cannot get through this amount of material in that amount of time. Next slide. So as you know from my conversation with you last week, CFD recognizes that this county there's no way that the county can implement these new caseloads within a 3-year time period. It is not financially capable unless our state acts very quickly to get everyone a lot of money. Even if they do that, there are not enough attorneys graduating law school and coming into public defense for us to fill all these positions in a 3-year time period. So I am proposing that we move forward with a 10% reduction each year from the starting place that we are now, which, as everyone is aware, on July 2nd, the Washington State Bar Association standards went into effect. And so the offices are both currently operating under phase 1, which is the 110 felony case credits or 280 misdemeanor credits with case waiting. Next slide. If we move at a 10% reduction from here each year, this would show how long it would take us to get into full implementation by July of 2032 for felonies. Next slide. This does the same thing for our misdemeanor reduction. Again, we would need the final implementation by 2032. Next slide. It was asked last week, what is best for the taxpayers of Spokane County? And the answer is retaining our most qualified attorneys and improving recruitment. So when CFD or the public defenders lose our qualified attorneys, these caseloads that they have, the cases with these 5 binders and hours of discovery, has to be reassigned to one of our remaining qualified attorneys who already has their own binders taking up real estate in their office. And when the attorney leaves, they can be 2 years into the case, they can be on the eve of trial, and they walk away and the case completely starts over. There's no way for the attorney taking it over to get into that other attorney's head and somehow digest the discovery that way. They have to go through it all over, starting from scratch to get through the discovery. They then have to build a relationship with their client. And so it just creates this huge burden that causes significant delays for our criminal justice system as well, with more continuance and longer jail stays. Next slide. So without case waiting, taxpayers will see the continued exodus of qualified attorneys. It will make attorney recruitment extremely difficult. Other counties, especially King County, they're already advertising that they're moving forward with standards. They're poaching attorneys from various offices. I mean, they're cold calling and reaching out to people and trying to hire them into their agency. I know that this board is very well and very aware and made a lot of efforts last year to make recruitment easier by increasing initial salaries. And so this is another mechanism we need to have in place to continue to recruit and retain. Without case waiting, it will lead to more continuances. It will lead to longer jail stays. It will lead to crowding court dockets. There will be more cases or more concern of cases being overturned on appeal for ineffective assistance of counsel, and it's delayed justice for victims and defendants. However, with case waiting, we can retain our qualified attorneys. It will improve our recruitment. It will allow for more timely case resolution with fewer continuances. It should result in shorter jail stays so that you aren't on the hook for that budget amount either. It should create more efficient court dockets, which helps the entire court system. It will lead to fewer allegations of ineffective assistance of counsel, and it will be timely justice for victims and defendants. Next slide. Please say yes. Any questions?
So if I'm understanding this, your phase in for the caseload standards, and you're recommending essentially going with the Supreme Court's guidance then, the 10% per year?
It's somewhat of a hybrid is how I would look
Okay.
at it, because we've already started phase one, which is the WSBA, because they're the ones who have the 3 phases.
Mhm.
And so that's reducing from where we currently are with the 150 felonies a year without case waiting to 110 with waiting, which is what we're doing now.
Okay,
And so then it would be 10% from here, spot we are today.
and you're confident you can do that without violating the bar associations? We've heard from a number of folks that say that's what attorneys have to abide by, is the bar association.
I think when it comes, I think that our RPCs are individual. And so I've had conversations with my attorneys about how this looks moving forward. Certainly at any given point, an attorney can say, I can't take any more cases. And they might not have had, whatever their monthly case credit that they should have had. They might have to take a break because they're assessing their own needs. But I believe that yes, we can accomplish it in the way that I proposed.
And still meet the ethical standards?
As long as we are allowing for those attorneys to have that ability to say, I can't take any more, yes, because I also think we can have, a situation where we talk about in the fallback, where we're also going to have situations where they shouldn't have been awarded as many credits on a case because it didn't take that much time. So I think it's a lot of ongoing conversations. And part of the reason that I said that timekeeping is going to be so important is that is what is really going to allow us to have that local control to see what is actually being spent on a case.
Okay, so the bar association isn't necessarily the end all be all written in stone, must be followed to the letter. With their 3-year phase in, is what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
Well, first of all, this is giving me some very unpleasant flashbacks to practice days. Being up all night reading documents like that. So on the state funding, just to clarify, is it the PD's office that actually submits the application? Okay, all right, and so you are talking with Colin about what is the most appropriate distribution of those over the 2 offices, those dollars?
I've not really, I hadn't really been involved in those conversations in the past. We have always provided our numbers to the public defenders at the time that they're gathering this, and we get a copy of what's ultimately submitted to OPB. But the money's always just come directly to the public defender's office. So this is the first time that there's been discussion about CFD possibly taking on some of that money. We usually handle, I think, around 15 to 20% of the cases. And so it would be certainly nice to have some of that money. So maybe more.
Like we've just had lots of discussions on all of this, so I think we're all, as you know. Getting the information, yeah, I mean, this is where. I think the lawsuit in the state that Wasac is having is necessary to shows because we don't have the funds to do this. It's truly not our responsibility as the county. I mean, all your felony cases are on behalf of the state of Washington, and so. So it's just tough.
And my understanding is that I think the AGs have appealed the Court of Appeals ruling. It's the latest I've heard, and so I have no idea how long we're gonna take to get a decision on that. Yeah. So I know it's everyone in a tough spot, and you know, one of the things I had initially talked about in some initial preliminary meetings with Mike and people from budget was the potential to post the new sales tax that can be done on the, you know, just the council voting here. But my understanding is the sheriff's office has to take advantage of a grant in order for us to be even eligible to consider that. They're not taking that grant, so I know that funding source is not available either.
Yeah.
Or at least that was my understanding.
There's a lot of issues to it, so. Yeah. So. This, Mr. French, did you raise your hand?
Oh, dear God, no.
So if the 10%, you know, if we were to implement what you were recommending over the 10 years,
Yeah, it says there at
2032. What does it take though? The positions in your presentation that you are saying, you know, you'd like to have 4 new attorneys or a paralegal, are those connected to that?
Yes, so that's connected to the phase 1 that we're in, so that is based on the caseload calculators that were sent out. I think, in summer of 2024, we had to do some numbers based on what the prior filings are to try to project out how many attorneys we would need under the new standards. And that is where I came up with that amount in juvenile because of the biggest impact being there. And then it would be, you know, so we have kind of this upfront ask that I have now to keep us,
The five and
yeah, to keep us in compliance with the phase 1 that we're in. And obviously, you know, I know Colin mentioned it too, if filings change, these numbers change as well, and so everything is in flux. That's why I said we're the cahoots. We are, you know, reacting to everything else that is occurring.
Having pre-trial services ahead, you know, it's just, it's a whole system that is. Each has to be running smoothly. There's not enough money to make it all run smoothly. Essentially. Not my, not fun.
Not
Marianne. Well, we have extra time if anyone wants to help carry a binder back up for me. Thank you all for your time and best of luck making your tough decisions.
You can see if Gina has a dolly that you can borrow.
Maybe I'll have to look at trying to order one of those sometime left at the end of the year. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
That is scheduled.
might be in well.
You want to check to.
Only if it's
Because only what's presented.
right,
That's evidence, that's all.
right.
So the.
Prosecutor, so.
I can give you a date here.
Yeah.
I know, I was just like, so cute. Like, oh my God, this is like, this sounds messy. Yeah.
I think if you could take an extra 10 degrees cooler and you have to put a switch.
Yeah, Amber, we're still recording. I have not recessed.
Oh, okay.
So I'm waiting to see if the prosecutors can get here or not before I recess, so.
Water.
That there'll be more conversations.
Said he's on his way.
On his way. Okay. How about we recess for 5 minutes?
Not sure from where. Minutes, $100,000 cut from the top.
So we'll be back in
All
5
right,
minutes.
I'll do it. Take me in. Do it live.
Oh, gotcha.
Hey, well, welcome back. We are back, welcome back. We are back from our recess of 5 minutes. And so Preston was able to join us a little earlier. So thank you for doing that. And we will start with our prosecutors discussion.
Well, good morning, everybody. Obviously, we, submitted what our attempts were to meet the target budget. We presented some options as to how to meet that budget. That also dovetails with our ask back, which we'll get to towards the end of the presentation. But essentially, the only way that we can meet our budget in a meaningful way is people. So we do not have large expenses aside from some of the uncontrollable ones that we'll discuss. We don't have equipment that we're purchasing beyond what's normal. I think if you put it down to a percentage, between 96 and 97% of our budget is people. And we run a very lean budget, and we typically will turn over, vacancy savings back to the board. We're not wasteful with those funds. If you look at years past, we've been very frugal in how we approach management of our department, trying to do the most with what we have. Our filing numbers reflect that. And our resolution numbers reflect that as well. And so as we kick this off, obviously, what we see on the slide is these are the obligations that the prosecutor has. These are the statutory obligations, one being the legal advisor to both the legislative authority as well as the department heads, and then appearing and representing the county in all criminal and civil proceedings. We are responsible for all felony prosecution within Spokane County. We are not, however, responsible for all misdemeanor prosecution. We'll talk about that a little bit as we get into the presentation. So if we go to the next slide. So we have certain contractual obligations. They're fairly minimal, but they're also the only areas where we could truly get any sort of revenue within our department. One of them is prosecution of misdemeanors and infractions in outlying jurisdictions. So our contract with the City of the Valley contracts to handle infractions, throughout the county. We presently do that out of the Spokane Valley Court on Mondays. In terms of our misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors that come from outside of unincorporated Spokane, those all get handled right here at the Public Safety Building in our district court unit. We do have a number of different grants. One of them is in our appellate unit. We have a resource prosecutor for the Washington Association of Prosecuting Attorneys. Half of that position is paid for by WAPA. They provide appellate services throughout Eastern Washington in that role. We go to the next, probably 2 slides. So this is a snapshot of our overview. We anticipate being able to meet the target budget. And we've engaged in a couple of assumptions, and I hope the board doesn't take issue with that, but I'll explain them. One of them is anticipating leaving 8 positions vacant. So that'll get us to a total of 902,000 roughly, if those positions were kept vacant. We currently have vacancies in that area. We did hire into one of the attorney positions, but we did that anticipating a vacancy before the end of the year that will make up for that. We've also have requested an increase in Fund 133 contribution. That is our victim witness fund. Speaking with budget and us looking at the numbers, we believe we could increase what that fund pays without depleting the fund. So that would be about $68,000 to get towards our target. The assumptions that we engaged in were in relation to family law, indirect rate for the grant management, as well as the interpreter fees that are an uncontrollable cost to the prosecutor. For this year, we budgeted $270,000 for interpreter fees. As of 9/17, we're at $233,000 for the year. So we anticipate potentially exceeding that $270,000 budget. And then just to explain the interpreter fees, again, that is a cost of the county. So the interpreters that are generated by the prosecutor's office are very small. I would say it's probably $20,000 or less. But anytime a criminal defendant, utilizes an interpreter to talk to their lawyer, prepare for trial, or a court schedules a hearing and schedules an interpreter, it gets billed to the prosecuting attorney. So there's a statutory mechanism that requires that the prosecuting authority bear the cost of interpreter fees. Traditionally in Spokane, it's just been assigned to the prosecutor budget. So my pushback on that, and Larry and I talked about this many times the last couple of years, is it doesn't say the prosecuting attorney shall pay this. It says a prosecuting authority, which in other jurisdictions, it's typically a cost of the county because it's an access to justice issue. And it's a, language access to the court issue. So those are kind of the two areas where we're asking for some grace. It's in terms of interpreters fees. In years past, this number has skyrocketed. And that's just a reflection of, the diversification of our community. And we have certain cases that cost a lot of money to prosecute, just because interpreters are necessary sometimes for victims and for criminal defendants. And so in terms of the family law indirect rate, I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get there. But my understanding of the grant management is that the federal government under a CFR permits the county to take up to 15% of a grant for the management fee. So what we've asked in anticipation of going into next year is, if we're trying to be flat, we're also asking the county to assess the 2025 indirect rate of 10.6%, which is what we engaged in terms of trying to meet this target budget. So I've got some slides that explain that a little bit more. If we go to the next one, Ron. So uncontrollable and increased expenses. So by and large, our uncontrollable expenses that increase no matter what every year are expenses that are typically a side effect of county benefits. One of them being employee payoffs, PTO cash outs. Those are issues that are big ones. In years past, and speaking with the budget department, we were directed, don't forecast PTO cash outs, or sorry, not PTO cash outs, employee payoffs for everybody that's at retirement age. If so, we'll have an artificial number. At any given time, we have a number of attorneys that presumably could retire. So we don't budget for that amount, yet when they do retire, it's paid out of our budget. And so in years past, it's generally not an issue with large vacancy rates or savings. But as we, enter a more austere outlook, it's becoming more of an issue. We try to do our best to forecast PTO cash outs based on years prior and what employee norms are. But again, that's a benefit that the county permits. It just comes out of our budget. So interpreter fees is really the big one. That's the big one that's always moving and always increasing. This year, we saw some increases that were passed on to our department in the dues box. Waco dues in the past, I believe, were borne at a county-wide level. This year, they're in our budget to be accounted for. So I believe that's a $30,000 hit to us on the Waco dues. We're also required to be part of Waco, as the prosecutor's office is a department that falls under that. And so that was just an additional cost that I personally had not anticipated as we were looking forward. Court transcripts, again, that's a cost that increases based on litigation. As we get more appeals, we necessarily have to get more transcripts of those records in order to process those appeals. And so those are payments that are made out to court reporters as we prepare those cases. We could go to the next slide. So this is the one that's a little more informative about the family law rate. In 2025, our family law grant from the state or award from the state was less than anticipated. So we've done our best to absorb that through whatever savings or surplus we had on the criminal side to address that overage. We've either not hired or left positions open in order to try to absorb that overage. And so this kind of outlines what the historical indirect rates were for that grant. I intend to call Division of Child Support and the state to see if there's anything that we can do to address, the grant amount. I've spoken with our family law division. One of the things that Spokane has traditionally done is taken on family law cases from other counties. We're not required to do that, and we don't get a benefit from the state for doing that. And so Whitman County is one of them, and then I believe it's either Lincoln or Southern that we do process some of their cases. So under the state system, those counties get a direct grant from the state to fund part of their either judge or family law commissioner, but we're not receiving any of those pass through for the prosecution services. So that's an area that I intend to discuss with them and then indicate that if we're not able to get compensation for that work, then we won't be able to do that work in 2026. So that isn't, and that may result in reducing that department accordingly based on the grant that we get. So we've been addressing that. And again, my hope is that any reductions that we're required to undertake will be either through attrition or current vacancy rates. So that's one of the situations we're in right now. If we could flip to the next slide. So this outlines the actions that we have taken, or at least anticipate taking to address this. This slide just describes the assumptions that were made there at the bottom. Doing our best to decrease some of our M&O expenses. We have a lot of, we've been very frugal in terms of our travel. We budgeted more this year for training and travel because we have a very new office. And frankly, we've saved a lot of money just because we're trying to do our best to put on local homegrown trainings and send people locally. So we've not been spending a lot of money sending people all over the country for training. That said, going into 2026, there will be some training expenses that we've tried to budget for. And that's just a side effect of having a newer office, having attorneys that are younger, greener, that need some of these trainings. I've asked the police departments to anticipate, trying to partner with us or maybe adopt a prosecutor for a training that they're sending officers to. One of those areas is use of force trainings, officer involved shooting training. So that's a statutory function that we have, is to investigate, make determinations on that. The last use of force training we had available to prosecutors was in 2017. So aside from Ms. McNulty and myself, I think we're the only attorneys in our office that attended that training. So we're going to need to send a couple of folks to that. My hope is that the sheriff's office is going to be able to bring an instructor to Spokane. And I've been speaking with their management a little bit about what that would look like to make sure we've got slots here that we don't have to expend funds for. If I go to the next slide. So this is a snapshot of our FTEs, both for attorneys and staff. Authorized FTEs for attorneys is 73. That includes myself as a department head. So that leaves 72 attorneys to handle what we have in Spokane. And I'll do a breakdown moving forward as to how that's broken up. We currently are at 68 lawyers in the office. Of the attorney FTE count, we have 53 on the criminal side. Those 53 include the managers. So Chief Deputy Katie McNulty and Assistant Chief Deputy Gretchen Vierhoff are part of that 53 attorney count. Our vacancies are on the criminal side of the office in terms of the attorneys. And so when we do a breakdown, you'll see, I'll explain it in a little bit more detail a couple slides from now, just how small the numbers are as it addresses the criminal side. In the civil department, we have 13 lawyers, and in family law, we have 6. And so just to throw out a little bit of plug for civil, we have 13 attorneys there, whereas I believe Snohomish County has 26 civil lawyers in their civil department. And so that gives you a sense of how much you're getting out of the 13 lawyers across the street at a much reduced cost. If we could do the next slide. So these are the proposed vacancies. And again, these are a reflection of what's currently vacant. We actually have 5 attorney vacancies, but one of them is not up on the board because that is a position that we've been talking with IT and with purchasing about keeping open to get an upgrade in Axon, which is the program that we use for our discovery sharing. So when Axon was, I guess, on the table and contracted with the sheriff's office, the prosecutor's office does not currently have an Axon contract. We're not part of the discussion of Should we be added on for additional costs? I do think that when the sheriff's contract for Axon is up next, that we could try to find some way to marry them together. But what we've been utilizing is the free add-on to Axon for all of our processing of discovery and sharing. It has created a massive headache across the county. It's created a lot of inefficiencies in sharing because built into the Axon system is a need to upgrade in order to better facilitate discovery. One of the issues that we're constantly facing with defense counsel and court is discovery hasn't been shared. We can't see certain files from the law enforcement side. And as we delved into this, we learned that, well, all of those problems can be addressed, but you just have to buy the special program of Axon and it'll address it for you. And because this is creating a huge liability issue for us, we've had a couple of cases dismissed in the district court level because our attorneys simply cannot see the discovery on the PD side, police department side. And so by purchasing a program called Axon Justice, which is an add-on to the law enforcement Axon, it helps us manage discovery in a much more meaningful fashion. We can see the files that we have not received. We can see discovery and audit trails to the public defender's office or to private defense lawyers. And so the fact that we've been able to survive this long without it is a testament to how hard we're working our staff to go manually find and pull all this information. Our case files, depending on the case, it's terabytes of information at a time. And so on a homicide case, you might have even a single phone could have half a terabyte on it that has to be put somewhere, processed, looked at, and then shared with defense counsel. And so Axon Justice, our position is a very much needed tech upgrade in order to maintain our discovery obligations and to not compromise cases. So we've committed that we would leave one of the vacant attorney one positions open if we can purchase that program because it's that necessary. And so that fifth attorney one position is not up on the board. But in looking at what we see on the screen right now, those are the vacancies that we contemplate leaving open to meet that minimum level of 902,000. If we could switch to the next slide.
Okay, so is that Axon program, is that a one-time expense or a yearly subscription?
It's a yearly subscription that costs about $87,000 a year. So what I will say is the entire time the sheriff's office has had Axon, the county has not been spending any money on the prosecutor's office having Axon. And so I recently found out, I think the Office of Public Defense and Counsel for Defense potentially have their own Axon contracts. I did not know that was the case. I just assumed they were using the free add-on that comes with Axon, but apparently they've been utilizing something different. Anyways, when you're looking at the breakdown for crime across Spokane County, this is the part that gets a little bit more alarming to me as the county prosecutor. It is, we have 51 criminal attorneys total. So those are the line DPAs. On top of that, we have 2 managers, our chief and assistant chief. So of those 51 attorneys, 8 of them are in district court. They handle all of the misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor crime in the community. Slide 15 will show the numbers that they're currently dealing with. 4 of those attorneys are in juvenile court. So despite the crime trends that we see and certain crime trends going downward, crime and violent crime, especially in juvenile courts, exploding. Gun crime, gang violence in juvenile court is going through the roof and causing a lot of difficulty. We've had some setbacks at the state appellate level where some of the tools that we used to have in order to reel in some of these dangerous offenders were taken away from us. Our state Supreme Court passed a rule that makes it harder for our judges to get arrest warrants for violent juvenile offenders. So that causes a lot more work and motion practice for the attorneys in court in order to get them into a confined setting. Of those 51 criminal attorneys, 2 of them are mental health and therapeutic court attorneys. So I've got 2 lawyers that deal with our drug court, health court, and handle our mental health sentencing alternatives. And so they do a pretty good job working with the multidisciplinary team in that area. 4 of those lawyers are in felony appeals. So as our case numbers, well, this year we're going to be down a little bit, but every case that goes to court and gets a conviction, whether it's via plea or via the trial, a large percentage of those get appealed. We've seen an increase in that number because our state courts and legislature keep providing more opportunities for defendants to have represented counsel in subsequent appeals. So it's eroded the idea of finality from our system. Our appellate unit used to have 3 lawyers. We've plussed them up due to the increase in work. And we have a need for their assistance as well in some of our felony trial practice. So we currently have the 5 vacancies, the one I discussed about Axon. But the number that I want everyone to focus on is our felony attorneys, because what you get called about as commissioners, yes, it's crime. You get talked to about why are these offenders, going through and just revolving door and what's happening there. So for all crime in Spokane, our community, whatever our total population is, you've got 27 felony attorneys right now. So last year we filed 3,900 cases roughly in Spokane County. Those 3,900 cases got distilled through the filter of 27 to 30 lawyers in Spokane. So the caseloads are extremely high. But our resolution levels are up there as well. So our attorneys resolve thousands of cases every year. So I know there's a lot of inefficiencies, potentially within the system, but I would submit to you that your prosecutor's office is filing and resolving a lot of cases, and that's borne out by the AOC numbers when you look at them. We can go to the next slide. Yes.
Quick question for you. On the 2 attorneys for mental health therapeutic court, is that for Superior Court and District Court?
That's only Superior Court. So it's in District Court, we have a position, and usually it's a rotating duty that a lawyer is staffing that the therapeutic courts there.
So it's one of your 8.
Yes,
District Court.
one of the 8 District Court.
Okay.
And then one of those 8 is also the supervisor in District Court. Yes.
You mentioned that juvenile felony cases have really increased.
Particularly violent crime.
So is that, can you speak a little bit more to that in terms of the nature or character of those offenses? I mean, is it violent crime against other juveniles? Is it violent crime against adults? Help me understand the nature of that.
So I would say all of it. And again, some of it's a side effect of COVID, but there were also some post-COVID reforms that have led to that increase. One of them being the legislature passed a full law that does not permit law enforcement to interview juvenile suspects. So I believe that went into effect in July of 23. And if everybody was here during COVID, you remember kind of that season of gang violence that we had. We had 4 homicides and 4 weekends that were perpetuated by 4 juvenile offenders. And I was the prosecutor on those cases and working on a gang task force with both city and county. We ended up charging well over 30 of them. And we were able to solve those cases through a lot of hard work, but a lot of interviews. And so we were able to find out who the offenders were, map their networks, take them down through concerted effort of state, local, and federal resources. Well, post passage of that interview law, if law enforcement rolls up on a scene and they have somebody they suspect or has probable cause to believe that they're the shooter or they're the one that committed the robbery, they're no longer allowed to interview that suspect without calling a state language line. The answer our law enforcement always gets when they call that line is get a lawyer. And that's pretty much it. So state law prior to that and case law at both the federal and state level permitted juveniles to either waive their right to a lawyer. Parents could waive their right to an attorney if they were under a certain age, or a parent could come in with their kid and say, hey, my son was part of that group that broke into those gun stores and they want to talk. An example of this absurdity is shortly after the law passed, I went to the scene of a vehicular homicide. And it was a situation where juveniles in one car were hit by another car being driven by a juvenile male. That kid's mother showed up at the scene, and as I'm standing there with the detectives, she said, my son's going to cooperate. He's going to sit down and interview and tell you what happened. And we had to tell her, ma'am, I'm sorry, under state law, we're not allowed to do that because anything we learned from them will not be usable in a subsequent prosecution. So we called the language line. The answer was, go get a lawyer, you can't talk to them. And so the mother was repeatedly telling the detective the kid wanted to talk. He was 17 years old. And said, unfortunately, we can't do this. And so that's an example of some of the absurdity. There's exceptions to that rule, that if somebody is a witness or a victim, they can speak with law enforcement without an attorney. But if law enforcement roll up to a convenience store, a carjacking, and there's somebody that is there that they would normally interview as part of their work, they're not allowed to do that. We've got to get them a lawyer and jump through a bunch of different hoops. So our juvenile system also isn't set up to confine individuals in the same way as on the adult side, because it's a rehabilitative intent. So we've had situations where we've got juvenile suspects that want to talk and cooperate with law enforcement, and we simply can't have those conversations. And then our local juvenile population might have individuals in our detention facility that are gang members, and they're from rival gangs. Because they can't actually separate them or lock them up, we've had kids that go in there and they say, I just want to talk to you and tell you what happened. Please don't put me in there with the opposition. They're going to beat me up. And we have to say our hands are tied. These are the rules that we have to work with.
Got it. Thank you.
In terms of, I guess, on the theme that we have here, right? And what I submit to the board is the prosecutor's office has been doing more with less for a long time. And we've been doing very, very well, I will say, in spite of those. This is an example of, other counties in terms of the, salaries. Again, want to thank the board for the foresight that you all had last year in addressing the nationwide, attorney shortage crisis. There's been a lot more publication, even in the last 2 weeks, from the National District Attorneys Association, from multiple different states that are seeking both public defenders and prosecutors. Because again, this nationwide shortage, there's not a short route out of it. But there's an example of, our ability to recruit individuals is often directly tied to those numbers. And in the last, I'd say 5 or 6 months, we've been blessed with a lot more applicants than I'd say we had in years past. So we've been able to recruit a lot of talented individuals, especially recently. So I do have some hope that is getting better. If we go to the next slide. So Superior Court case filings from 2024 with roughly 3,900 cases. We only did numbers through the end of July, but we're on track to file probably between 3,300 and 3,400 cases. Now, I want everybody to keep in mind that we were down multiple attorneys last year as well. And as I talk about what we're unable to handle, keep in mind that that was true for 2024 as well. So through triage, identifying violent crimes, crimes against persons, we've made sure that we have kept those units, if not fully staffed, at least plussed up more than property crimes, and at times our district court unit. During the summertime, if we could run with 5 attorneys and a bunch of interns in district court, we do that. But during the school year, when the interns go back to school, then we need to have actual bodies to fill those courtrooms in our district court unit. Let's see, if we do the next slide. So this is an example of district court filings. Unlike Superior Court, district court filings are driven by law enforcement citations. So when a law enforcement officer arrests somebody for DUI or reckless driving, or they arrest somebody at the Walmart for third-degree theft, they get a citation that's generated through a program called Sector. They'll soon be tracks as WSP moves to something different. And they're given a court date, and their citation number is the district court case number the district court uses. And so one of the conversations that I have as I speak with law enforcement is, when you add 5, 10, 15 new deputies, those are other people, other officers that are able to generate these citations. Those get automatically sent and filed at the district court. So our district court attorneys are largely responsive to what's being filed in district court. And so as we look at these numbers, we're well on pace to to be within, plus or minus 100, 200 cases of what was filed last year. One of the themes that we've been seeing throughout all criminal prosecution is it's getting harder to process a single case. Gone are the days where you roll up on the scene and you read a report that, Deputy 1, Deputy 2, and Deputy 3 wrote. So in addition to that report, I also have 3 hours of body camera from each of those deputies. We also might have a cell phone that contains half the life of an individual, who got arrested during that scene. So it was really easy 5-10 years ago when bad guy had a flip phone and nobody had a body camera. Because that's, again, time that takes to review all that evidence. And that's true even at the misdemeanor level. As we get more technology in stores, you might have 5 different surveillance cameras that you need to watch in order to make sure that you have everything necessary to prosecute that case. Or even if the prosecutor doesn't have the time to watch them, they have to make sure they've found them all and given them to defense counsel. So programs like Axon are going to help with this, because unfortunately we've wound up in many scenarios where a trooper responds to a scene, a deputy responds to the scene, a city officer responds to the scene, and we only get discovery for one of those. And I can't see what every other department or agency has. So we need to get our tech to a level that we're able to preserve cases moving forward. We could do the next slide. So we were trying to figure out a way to quantify what these positions do and what's lost. We don't have these positions funded or staffed. And so we've taken, this isn't a completely fair comparison to take all the felony filings that we anticipate, just divide them by the number of felony lawyers. Some units will have less. Our special assault unit have less case number, a lower case number, because those cases involve a lot of discovery. Our major crimes units typically are running between 50 to 70 cases. So this is an average though of dividing it all across 27. What that amounts to is 125 new filings per prosecutor per year. And then same for district court, right? So 634 new cases for district court attorney. What this number does not contemplate is they don't start at 0. When you roll into the next calendar year, you have whatever cases you have from last year and whatever might be holdovers from the year before. So in sex crimes and in homicides, those cases have a life cycle that are typically more than a year. So 12 to 18 months right now is kind of on the short side of what it looks like to resolve a homicide case. And that's a side effect of the level of discovery. That criminal defendant might go through 2 or 3 or 4 lawyers by the time we get to the end of the case. We have to reshare discovery. They've got to get themselves up to speed. We've got backups at the crime lab. It might take 9 months to get our DNA tested. It might take 6 months to get a blood result back on a DUI, blood alcohol test. So there's a lot of things baked into that. And unfortunately, in the state of Washington, our case law does not permit us to seek a continuance because we're waiting on evidence. So we had a case that was overturned recently and said that we're not allowed to make that request anymore. It used to be that, hey, I need a continuance because I'm waiting on DNA back on the child sex case. And now we no longer have that as a good cause basis to continue cases. If we can do the next slide. Yes.
Is there what's the state of conversation at the state level about trying to clear those backlogs, if any?
Well, we saw what happened with the sexual assault kits, the rape kits, where there was an emphasis put there and they were able to process through all of those. But the criminal justice system as a whole, and I know we've all been talking about this, needs to be funded and prioritized better. We're beholden to the state lab. So we have the state toxicology lab and the state crime lab. And so there are times where we'll send evidence to, say, the state crime lab. And they say, we'll test those 3 pieces, but not those other 10. We're backlogged too much. So I guess to answer your question, though, I don't know. I haven't been part of conversations regarding state patrol, what they need at that level. But given some of our internal frustrations, that's the discussion I intend to have to see, can we get those units plussed up, because they don't serve just our county, they serve all 39. And they serve a lot of you know, smaller jurisdictions, everybody, whether you're a municipality or a county or the state, and you're sending all of your cases through that single. So that in turn impacts our ability to process sex crimes and violent crime if we're waiting on DNA, blood, or genealogical, you know, information.
So they've been able to clear out backlogs by focusing on
Specific
types of
issues.
evidence.
So we saw a big backlog in our district court unit that clogged us up, and we're still suffering through it to a certain extent. When you look at the district court cases, we had to dismiss DUI blood cases for a period of time and then refile them. This is paperwork and time intensive. But the issue was the state toxicology lab, it was taking 9 months to a year to process our blood results. And so because we can't ask for a continuance for the prosecutor to have their evidence and be prepared, we had to dismiss those cases so that we could refile them later. Otherwise, we'd run out of speedy trial. So and part of the frustration that I have is on the defense side, they can ask for continuances ad nauseum, and we can rarely object. If a prosecutor objects to a continuance and an attorney saying, I can't be prepared for trial, I need more time, and a court overrides that, and it's happened before, and they force them out to trial, that's likely an automatic reversal at the appellate level. And they'll say, well, the record was they weren't prepared for trial, so you know, you forced them out. We've had some internal discussions about challenging our appellate courts and Supreme Court on that issue, but we certainly won't be doing that with violent crime and sex crimes. We may take some cases at a property level and say, if you can't be prepared to try a property case that I could get a legal intern up to speed in 3 weeks, then perhaps, you know, we need to get the court opinion that says that. And so we're kind of toying with some of those ideas. We've got some attorneys in our community that are incredibly efficient, incredibly skilled. They can process large cases very quickly. But again, it depends on the lawyer.
It just seems that the crime lab backlog would be a statewide issue, and if there's momentum there at Wampa or otherwise, we'd be able to support that.
No.
It seems kind of crazy that level of backlog.
Well, and it's enough of a frustration point across all the counties that I think there'd be a lot of appetite to challenge that.
Yeah.
Just that it could be a state legislative priority for us to do that.
So looking at this in terms of reductions, if those 4 positions or 5 positions were to go unfilled, the number to focus on is not just the number of new filings that could happen. It's the what are those attorneys processing every single year, right? So this just shows a felony prosecutor wouldn't be able to file 100 to 150 new cases per year. But that's not all they do, because while they're filing and reviewing the new cases, they're resolving other pending cases. So for district court, it would look to be 600 to 800 cases per year. So district court, again, that's your 3rd degree theft at the Home Depot, at the Lowe's, at the Walmart, the general store. This is your reckless driving, DUIs, 4th degree assault, domestic violence, your criminal trespass, you know, on a business in an unincorporated county. But if we could go to the next slide, this gives you a sense of what individuals are resolving. So here's a snapshot from attorneys in different units. So Sharon Headland, as the supervisor of major crimes, resolved 129 felony major crimes cases in 2024. So that's in addition to everything that she filed that year. And so that's, you know, Miss Headland was handling murder cases. She just finished a homicide trial 2 weeks ago. You know, handling or violent crimes or 1st degree robberies, 1st degree assaults, 2nd degree assaults. So there's an example of a major crimes prosecutor of what she was able to resolve in addition to charging the new cases. Mr. Edwards is in our property. He resolved 268 felony property cases last year. So those are, you know, resolutions through plea, trial, you know, or otherwise. That doesn't mean he just reviewed the new filings plus the old. He's also reviewing cases, triaging, prioritizing, maybe saying this case isn't a felony, but we're going to charge it in district court. So there's all those other functions that a prosecutor's doing. But that is a huge number in terms of resolutions for just one lawyer. When you look at Mr. Trapedi in the domestic violence unit, he resolved 114 felony domestic violence cases last year. So the number in red reflects the amount of new filings that we would anticipate in a particular year, given our population and referrals, as well as the loss of, what an individual could resolve over that time period. And so the amounts are huge. If we do the next slide. So this slide just puts it in a little different area of what could we expect service that we can no longer provide to the community. As the cases increase with less people, their workload also increases. And so we would do our best to absorb, but frankly, we're doing that right now. We have the 5 vacancies. We're doing our best to prioritize and absorb. So, which is why as part of our aspects, we'll be asking for the ability to fill these positions moving forward, assuming funding. In focusing on this, and I know you all know it, because everybody comes here with their hand out looking to fleece the board or, get their maximum funding possible. But I would just submit that the county prosecutor's office, we're not a department that wastes our resources in any way. We're trying to maximize every dollar. And when you look at our caseloads that our lawyers handle, it's greater than most, if not all the counties. They're doing a whole lot more with less. And I don't want that to be the status quo, but we're going to do our best through this, budget cycle to address some of these issues. If we do the next 2 slides. So this just describes the fund increase to Fund 133. Again, this fund is impacted by the state's ability to put funding in there from LFOs or the victims, fees. As we've seen, the courts grant the ability to waive LFOs. Funding for a lot of different law enforcement and court functions has gone down dramatically. But in looking at this multiple times, we think we can increase this and bring in an extra 68,000 without impacting that fund's ability to increase. So if we could go forward 2 slides. So getting back to both the challenge and the ask is the interpreter fees. I'm asking that the county look at that as a county-wide issue. Again, these monies are not something that we generate by asking for things to be translated. Somebody could say, well, you should prioritize cases based on these fees. I know nobody here would ask that, but we can't choose. We don't choose our crime victims. We've got cases where we've had, Farsi interpreters for our crime victims. We've had cases where we've had, whether it's Marshallese, Russian, any number of languages, we have to provide those interpreter services. But again, these are primarily driven by defense, and it's necessary as they talk to their attorneys, as they talk to their experts. They have to have these interpreter fees. We just get the bill. So our office's primary involvement is generally just processing invoices. We do not, generate most of the service requests. So we're asking to move the interpreter fees out of the prosecutor budget and make it a county-wide access to justice issue versus a county prosecutor obligation. Can you do the next slide? Sorry.
Can I ask before you move on, the roughly 300,000 for the interpreter fees, that is not a part of your 7% reduction, correct?
So that is one of the assumptions that we engaged in to get to the 7%.
That it would be a 7%. Okay, but because it doesn't have any impact on the general fund. If we move it out of your department, and we're gonna take the 300 away from you anyway, but that still doesn't get us to the reduction in the overall general fund.
Correct.
Yeah, I just want. Okay,
It would not be a 7% reduction if that was not moved out of our office.
okay.
So. If it were to stay there though, you could add 2 attorneys back to that list. And then, requisite numbers, so go with that in terms of what cannot be processed. on the next slide, I described this a little bit already, Axon and the need to have that tech upgrade. It's enough of a need that it's jeopardizing our cases and our ability to protect the integrity of our cases. So much so that, you know, we're willing to keep a position unfunded to pay for that, because it's very much necessary.
What was the cost of that?
So the implementation cost, I believe, was about 87,000. The recurring yearly fee was around 87,000. And so, again, one of my frustrations is it's not anybody's fault really, but when the sheriff's office did their Axon negotiation, I very much wish that we were part of that. And that's not a fault of the sheriff's office. It's that I think there was the marketing from Axon, I think, was perhaps not what it is today in terms of what would be needed on year 3, 4, 5, and 6 to be able to maintain the service that we need to provide to defense. So now they're marketing this new Axon Justice. Oh, hey, all the problems you complain about, they're fixed here for the low cost of 87 grand per year. So that's kind of where we're at.
Just, so you had mentioned that the public defenders maybe do they use an Axon product, or?
So yes, so that came to
I'm
light.
just wondering if we could just bundle all of this stuff somehow.
I think there's some potential for that, and
Yeah.
perhaps Mike has an idea of what they have. I didn't know they were paying anything for Axon because we don't. So there's a free add-on for the prosecutor, but it's just not,
It's
it's not
not,
meeting our needs. What I will say.
you have until a point.
Yeah. So what I will say is there's no requirement that the public defender's office have the same program that we do, because they're getting the discovery anyway.
Right.
So your private lawyers, your Rob Costi, your Winston Cachet, name your law firm, they get a link and a Dropbox, and they get all the info that way. And so I think what would be of value, probably a task for Mike would be, is the cost of storage cheaper than the cost of Axon Plus storage? So that would be something to look at, because I know that a lot of private firms have gone to buying whether it's servers or larger hard drives, you know, to store
Like
cases.
secure storage ways to.
So is that cheaper than having the program itself? So it's the same thing, you know, we're not buying criminal defendants or the defense attorneys the same tech or radios or equipment that the sheriff has, right? We're making sure that they have access to the information. There's not a requirement that they have the same system. And so, you know, I have not looked at what the cost measures look like for that, because the program for the prosecutor, of course, is different than the program they'll market for the defense lawyer, right? Because the prosecutor, as a law enforcement agency, has different access and connects to other law enforcement agencies. Whereas, you know, the Office of Public Defense is not a law enforcement agency. Our obligation is to share discovery with them, not to provide them the same equipment or materials that we have. The next tech issue that we're facing is prosecutor by carpel, so our case management system. There's a need in both my office as well as, you know, the public defender's office for a different case management system. And I think that this is a joint request that's shared by IT. I know that we've talked with them a lot. Big concern that we have is I believe there's one programmer left in the county that service case man. When that programmer retires, we're all up the proverbial creek without a paddle. So Caseman was built by county IT. You know, we haven't been spending money on our management system other than the man hours. And so if we go to the next slide. Let me see, actually. No, let's go. Two more perhaps. So yeah, there we go. So the program that we've looked at for a case management system is used by, I believe, 28 other counties statewide. Over 16,000 different agencies utilize the system. And we believe that it would result in a lot of benefits to the county overall. And we do believe that once we get past that implementation cost, it would have a recurring net savings to the county. Because we presently have attorneys and a single staff person who knows how to program and Caseman spending tens of thousands of dollars every time we have to update something. So we have a slide in here that talks about, so reductions. So there could be, we anticipate savings through either staff reductions, increased time savings for the lawyers. So rather than when I have to generate a charging document, me writing out all my request, giving it to a legal secretary who then goes, types it and inputs it, who then hands it off to a paralegal, who hands it off to another person. We'll be able to shorten that chain a little bit. And I think we can shorten it through attrition without a negative, workforce impact in terms of morale. These slides just have a lot of information about Carpel, but if we can move forward 2 slides. So these are the savings. So you can query IT on this. It becomes an increasing headache to IT to have to change Caseman every time we get a change in the systems it communicates with. When I started in this office, when I opened Caseman, I could look at my discovery in Caseman. I could look at the photos from the scene, I could look at the videos from the scene. That's been gone for nearly 10 years now, because as the sheriff's office, police, state patrol upgraded their systems, they could no longer communicate with Caseman, which is why we have all these different little systems. And then we necessarily have to pay all these different fees to utilize the systems. We believe that the IT cost at a minimum is a $62,500, but I would probably ask Mike or maybe Colin. PD Man is what the public defense has. It's a carbon copy of Caseman. And so whatever IT is spending for them, that number I don't know, but this is the number that they're using for Caseman and for Prostox. That's how we get our law enforcement referrals. So we believe it would save them that much money. If they were to create their own system and say, keep it inside, keep it proprietary, the numbers we got from IT is it would take them 3 years of coding to fully rewrite and update a new Caseman to interact with Axon, to interact with New World and whatever's coming for our dispatch and CAD systems. And so that's just something that I don't believe they can do. And frankly, I don't think that we can all afford. You one more slide. So Carpel is not cheap. Yet as I've looked across the county at different subscriptions and programs, I think the county's been getting off pretty good based on what we've been doing within our office. But it's expensive. The cost is $186,000 a year. But when you look at the cost of staff as well as the IT billing, and what this number doesn't capture are the 100+ hours that we've had, somebody like Ms. Veerhoff, who's going through and updating documents because they don't auto update with legislative changes. So we have an attorney who has to go in and manually do that. One of the benefits we get with Caseman is as there's a statutory change or a change in the law, they'll push an update statewide to Washington for what that change is. With Carpel, sorry. That'll get pushed statewide and we can accept that or we can tweak it and look at it, but it gives us a lot more options than having to go in and manually code. And so I didn't fully understand what my staff was telling me by coding until I watched somebody do it. It's numbers and dashes and all of that to get the documents that we get out of Caseman. It's a very antiquated system. And then as the clerk's office modernizes, as our Superior Court hopefully modernizes, it's just not going to keep up with it. So this is, I believe, a necessity for us. And then I do believe it'll have a net savings of roughly 20 grand a year, once we get past this part. So our hope is that in our vacancy rate for savings that we have for 2025, we would be able to make the initial purchase and implementation costs. But we'd be looking moving forward at folding in that yearly cost for 26 and 27.
This is one that Kevin has talked about. Has talked about a lot. You've seen it on other slides. And right after the momentum that we talked about with treasurer, assessor, and then according on an auditor, this has been his next priority. So we have, again, I'll look at those as all of a package as we're looking at IT. But this is just from the IT standpoint, I know Kevin. He has concerns about Caseman too, the staffing of that. just getting modernized.
Mike.
We have an appointment tomorrow for a presentation for the public debate side of Carpel. Just so we can connect.
So there's a Defender by Carpel product. I don't know the cost on that. We made sure that in the products we looked at, that if the county so chose, the defense would not be required to buy the same product if necessary. So Carpel services 28 prosecutors' offices in Washington. Not all of those have the Defender by Carpel function. We had them describe for us what that pass-through looks like. And they said that we would have the discovery logs and audits. We would be able to share discovery to defense. They'd be able to access it. They just wouldn't have the same interface unless they purchase Defender by Carpel. So if I just want that out there, that if we got this, it doesn't require a reciprocal purchase. It'd make it more convenient, I'm sure. But they would still get the information anyway. They would just be treated like private defense lawyers. So they'd be treated like the tall building lawyer that, somebody who's wealthy can hire. They would get their discovery the same way they would. So.
Well, Preston answered my question, but just a comment on, like many of our homegrown products for IT, they're reaching end of life. You've got certain people that know the system well, and as they leave the county, retire, whatnot, it's hard to transfer that knowledge. So moving to off-the-shelf systems that have auto updates and stuff that are maintained by a third party is a more beneficial approach to take. I think that's part of what we'll want to have in a discussion with the board when we start to look at capital items. This one included with it, along with possibly Axon.
One of the benefits of Carpel too is that it interfaces with Axon, it interfaces with different CAD systems. So instead of paying a programmer $20,000-$30,000 to try to build a bridge, it's very amenable to different needs. And so that's one of the reasons why we looked at that. We can just
Just a comment to Jeff's comment about like, there's a lot of programs that we're having to look at updating. I mean, this with the PD side and the prosecutor, especially on the PD side, if it's a program where you can track your hours, it seems like it's pretty necessary right now. So.
And I have to look at that.
My thing, I just, not that the assessor program or it was the assessor's program has great needs as well, but this is to me, a high priority to get this figured out, because if we can save hours of your attorneys not inputting nitpicky information, and we're losing these having to find these discovery files. I mean, it's just wasting a lot of time.
It is.
And so that if we could recoup some of that, then maybe your attorneys can handle, the caseloads.
Yes, it would provide a lot more court time, more phone time, talking with victims, talking with witnesses. So there'd be savings that are not just seen in the monetary, the dollar sign. For timekeeping, and I haven't talked to Mike too much, but a lot of different counties utilize different timekeeping functions. I'll let defer to call on them. I know that speaking with Snohomish County, they have a billing function in their civil unit. Not that I'm trying to task them with that, but because they track and capture back from the departments in the county legal services provided. So it's a system called OnTrack. If not free, it's damn near free. And it allows for time tracking on subject matter cases, and their elected, their chief civil, told us that they found a lot of value in that, because it just allows them to track cases in time. And then they invoice it and send it to the different departments. But I know the federal attorneys, federal defenders have time tracking systems. I don't know what they utilize, but there's a lot of different types of those out there if Carpel doesn't provide it, Mike. So this is kind of the, I guess, second to last slide, right? So this is the summary. And again, Commissioner Kearns, as you pointed out, those last two, those were assumptions that we engaged in to reach the target. So if we do not have the indirect rate, 10.6 from last year. That's an additional 92,400 that we would have to find. And then if we do not move the interpreter's fees, that'll be another hit that we have to look at. We did budget what we anticipate the prosecutor to spend on interpreters. I think it's about 25,000. And that's probably on the high end for us. That's if I have to get a transcript transcribed for trial, or we have to get a video transcribed, and I'm paying an interpreter to go through that, or interviews, typically child forensic interviews, that sort of thing. But that is how we think, as a way to hit the target 7%. If we go to the next slide. Obviously,
Just before we go to that next slide, sorry to interrupt, if we don't get those assumptions, what would be your solve for the?
so the solve for those numbers right there, it's gonna have to be we're gonna be in a position where we couldn't absorb the staff cuts through current vacancies or attrition. Probably be having to look at more aggressive measures to that. And those would be coming potentially out of both the felony and the district court unit to meet those numbers. So that'd be about 392,000 that we would have to absorb through personnel. So I'm hopeful that we don't have to get there. Hopeful that we're gonna have some other funding mechanisms in the next year or two that are gonna help with public safety. That's something I'm committed to, but that's kind of the reality of it. Next slide. So this is the order of priority. On the left, we have the two assumptions, the capital project ask there. That's kind of a larger discussion with IT and with public defense. But on the right, kind of an order of priority would be, our buyback request is the ability to fund those attorneys moving forward. And frankly, even if it was on a situation where they're kept vacant for the moment, and we could come back, on a case by case basis, say, look, I've got a qualified applicant for this attorney 3. Can we reactivate those funds moving forward? Even that would be something that if we could streamline that process, we'd very much ask. We need the attorneys. So on the felony side, with our growing county, with our growing law enforcement needs, to be down 4 lawyers, when frankly, we probably should have, 10 beyond that number, for a county our size, I think would have a very detrimental impact on public safety. Speaking with our staff, we do believe that, that paralegal position would be a necessary position to support those 4, assuming we got them back. And not that we don't need legal secretaries, but that's the order of priority on the right in terms of buybacks that we're looking at. So this kind of outlines, our position, our ask, the steps that we've taken. Are there any questions that I can answer that haven't been?
I had one. On your graph, kind of near the middle of the presentation, you had average salary at 110. How did you calculate that at the average attorney salary being 110?
So this just included the low and the high for those counties. And I mean, it's skewed a little bit, but this, our entry level attorney, I think, starts at now 75. Our senior attorneys top out, I think, around 142. Whereas other counties, their senior attorneys, typically 175 to 180. So that's what we're competing with in the senior. Trying to hire Devin Curda or Matt Folsom. They're going to be making north of that number even. But that's how we got to that. It's just that and dividing it by our FTEs.
Okay, because the actual average is around 126.
Is that including the chief deputies?
So it's the one that's the number that I've been presented with is 126 is the average attorney wage in your office.
Plus also, did you just take the low and the high of each county and plug it in? Or did you factor, we have 50 at the high and 3 at the low?
We took the low and the high, so it's not.
So this is an average of their hiring range.
Correct.
Not necessarily the average of bodies on the ground.
Exactly. And I
Okay.
think that's why there's two different numbers there.
And there was any geo modifier put into it for Puget Sound cost of living?
No, no. So, and obviously this leaves out, the higher counties, so like Yakima, right? Their starting rate for an attorney, a year one lawyer is $100,000 a year. And so a lot of the counties around us, Lincoln County, our close counties that we used to count on to bring the number down are actually starting around 90,000 plus. So they start about 20 grand higher than we do. So we're using the numbers that are more comparable for the larger counties. That would look wildly different if we included even Kootenai County, Lincoln County, Adams County. You know, I think Grant County was hiring a remote attorney for 90,000 as a year one. Drop out of law school with a bar number, you're making 90 grand. So, you know, obviously we want, you know, we want to catch somebody who owns a house and can't sell it right now and hire them versus encouraging them to go, you know, elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, and Jeff started to talk about it. The cost of living between Spokane County and King County is more than $14,000 a year. And the other thing is that you haven't factored in that you actually have to live in those counties, which is a negative as opposed to Spokane County. So
There's that.
you've got very true. You've got two things that you got to consider in the pricing.
Then one of our previous presentations today was from Council for Defense, and one of their slides they put up was the number of filings, and it's exactly what you were saying. The 3,900 for filings puts us second in the state. And then, I mean, Snohomish is the one that stands out most to me. I mean, they're 50% more in population than us, but they're less than half the filings. I mean, and then Yakima, which is half our population, but they're way up there too. You know, they're not half our filing, you know, but so I mean, why? I guess why are some large counties so much less than us? I mean, Snohomish seems to be the real outlier. You know, Pierce is 70% higher than us, and just a fraction, 500 cases lower. But
So it's gonna be a mix of a lot of things. So when you look at Pierce, last year they filed, I think about 3,500 cases.
Yeah.
I spoke with their chief deputy the other day. And she made a comment to me, said, how are you doing what you're doing? Because her felony unit is double or more of ours. And I think it's a variety of things. One is we're on the east side of the state. Our community is expecting more of their law enforcement, I think, than in perhaps some other areas. Yeah. We have a law enforcement community that is supported by their citizens, that's supported by their elected officials by and large. So we're expecting them to identify crime, refer the crime, prosecute the crime. One of the things that the rural counties don't have that urban counties do is the giant filter. So when you look at King County, for instance, you have an office with, last I checked, roughly 170, 175 lawyers. In King County, you have dozens of municipalities that each have their own municipal court system, and those function as a filter. So instead of getting the second degree robbery from the Home Depot, where somebody has assaulted somebody and stolen an item, in that municipality, they've already been told by their King County prosecutor's office that if you steal under a certain dollar amount, they're not filing it, right? So that falls on the municipality. So your cities of Everett, your cities of Bellevue, all these different cities are absorbing what in a community like Spokane, we're filing through our Superior Court system. Each of those municipalities has different revenue services or different revenue avenues that they're collecting from. So those cities often have really robust probation units. They have robust supervision that happens, whereas the rural counties like Yakima, like Spokane County, we don't have all of those filters. We have the city of Spokane, which, whether or not it's a good filter, I'll leave to all of you to decide. I can say that I don't think it is. But our municipalities we don't have a Deer Park Municipal Court. We don't have a, Liberty Lake Municipal Court. We don't have, those sorts of things. So when you have the lower level statutorily offenses that occur in Liberty Lake, at the Home Depot, at the Yokes, at the Safeway, those are all coming to rural Spokane Superior Courts, right? Versus those other counties where it can get absorbed in those little smaller areas. So that misdemeanant that started out stealing things, at a lower level might be supervised by the city of Everett, right? And then we already know King County under a certain dollar amount, it's advertised, they're just not filing it. So we have not done that yet here in Spokane County. My hope is that we never advertise to the criminals that we're gonna file, below a certain number, we're not filing. King County has a program right now where under a certain dollar amount, instead of prosecuting it and from their consideration, burning a case count and spending money on a public defender, they just write the crime victim a check and they give the offender a sheet of paper that says, here are services in the community, go avail yourself. I asked the question of their chief deputy, I said, do you even make sure they engage in services? He said, no, giving them the paper is the win in and of itself. So under a certain dollar amount, crime is paying in King County, and we are not there yet. And so our Superior Court judges necessarily get bogged down by more cases or more criminal cases than you see in the urban counties, because those urban counties can rely on the large filtration system that they have through municipal judges, district court judges, and then there's all the different layers of supervision that we don't have. In Spokane, we're a large rural court, and we necessarily get everything that would otherwise be filtered out. So civil protection orders are a fine example, right? So if somebody needs a civil protection order, they can go to district court or superior court. But under state law, the judges could no longer say, hey, go to district court, they've got more capacity, because there's kind of an anti-shuttling provision that they have. Whereas if I'm in King County or Pierce County, I can go to my municipal or district court, and it might be closer to me than driving to the superior court. Here, because we're in one location, it's one-stop shop, and everybody comes to the Disney Castle instead of the flat, scary looking building next door. And so our superior court judges are buried in civil protection order filings, and you don't see that in some of these other courts. So it's a mixture of geography, ideology, and a reflection of the community support I think that we have for law enforcement, that our numbers are what they are.
And can I ask, could you provide us with, if I don't know if this is a report that can be run of those 3,900 cases, where, or of the filings where they originated in, which jurisdiction? Whether it was unincorporated county, valley, city of Spokane? Is that something?
They should all be tied to an ORI number, so we should get.
Is that something you could run for
At a
us?
minimum, we can certainly do city and county, but I think that we'd be able to show city, county, valley, and elsewhere. So that, I think that's a report we can run.
Thank you. You can send that to all of us. I think we'd appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you.
I sense it would follow pretty closely what our jail stats are. Nice to see, yeah.
Any other questions? All right, well, sorry, I wish I had a bag of money and.
Could we?
Well, if I find it, I'll let you know where it's at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. That is the end of our morning. We are going to just continue this afternoon at 1:30. So we'll see everybody back for the continuation of